Okay, good morning, everybody. The date's May 21st, 2026. The time is 10:03. I am hereby calling to order the workshop of the City Council of the City of Groveland, Florida. Jenny, could you please take roll?
Yes. Mayor Keith Kehoe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Barbara Gaines.
Here.
Councilmember Amy Jo Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Michael J. Cox.
Here.
Councilmember Stephen Chilkowski.
Here.
Interim City Manager Tim Maslow.
Here.
Interim City Attorney Ben Schaefer.
Here.
Sergeant at Arms Christine Boudhu. City Clerk Jenny Wright here.
Thank you, and we have a quorum. We'll go ahead with, starting with a discussion on Building Blocks Ministries Cookbook, collaboration. Okay, everybody look at me and be very, very positive. Put on your positive faces. Building Blocks, of course you know Building Blocks and how they really help the community, is doing a cookbook as a fundraiser and came to me and asked if we could do recipes. I said, you know what really would be good if all the council could put a recipe in, their favorite recipe in, and collaborate, and if it needs to be tested, I'll be glad to test it, but that we'll put it in, we'll send it to them, put it in, even maybe take a picture. And then you know what came out of that discussion, and I want you to think about this, is that we actually, when they launch it, have the city council do their dishes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
I'm just throwing that out, so can I get a consensus on the recipes at least, that we each could put in one recipe? Yeah?
I think we can handle that.
Yes, yes. And you can vote for Steve, too? Steve, yeah.
Well, can
there
I
it is.
can I borrow the gumbo recipe? Because I'll put that one in.
Okay, all right, okay. And then we'll talk about the demo, because that's like 5 months away, you know, so we can talk about that at a later date. But what a statement for the community that would be.
Right.
And the press would cover Barbara picking up a pan and cooking something.
Steven, my recipe will be how to put cereal together with milk and cereal, and you just pour it all in. So I'll have a good one.
Well, it's all what your favorite recipe is, my friend.
Look, I just don't measure.
That's fine.
You measure seasoning with your soul, so now I got to write it down.
I'll give you a
second,
second, because we've done a lot of cookbooks. Just measure all the ingredients before you use them. Then, because you keep adding stuff, and then when it's all done and you're eating it, go back and weigh them again and subtract it, and it's fine.
That's fine. Okay. I'll make it work.
This can be a dessert, correct?
It could be dessert. It could even be a
Perfect.
cocktail.
Barbara's
All right,
Barbara?
I like it.
Barbara lit up. I can do a drink.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Going on to next on the agenda, proposed charter amendments. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Councilmember J. Cox.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Today, we're only going to talk about 2 amendments and 2 ordinance changes, because after my presentation, our interim lawyers told me that the amendment I had for a C and D only required an ordinance change. So I'll speak to them as ordinances and not charter amendments. Now, the first charter amendment that I'd like to speak to you about is the demand for the hearing, okay? First, the charter amendment, there's legal provisions in our charter right now that allows us to do what I'm proposing, and that is in section 1.13 and section 1.14. And the First Amendment, Amendment A, removing of the city manager's hearing demand. Now, when this came up, the city manager was due about $44,000 per contract after deductions that were in the contract. And what happened was substantially more, and one of the driving factors of that was the fact that this hearing was in the charter. I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and they said this is really a contract issue. If the person wanted to negotiate it into their contract, we can negotiate it. But we shouldn't have it in the charter. It's not really meant for the charter. And it cost the city a lot of money. And it cost the city grief and aggravation, and the public was upset about it and everything like that. And I understand why it went the way it did, but there's, in no case should we sit there and have somebody be able to hold the city hostage and extract more money than his contract allowed him to have. Now, in this amendment, it would be simple. We would just remove the last line in the charter that says he has this right to this meeting, and that's all we have to do with that amendment, is to move that. By doing that, the manager can no longer demand a pre-vote hearing, but his removal still remains the same. It still requires a majority vote. The manager still retains all the contractual and statutory rights of his contract and of Florida law. The manager still can speak at any public hearing. It's going to be at the podium. That's all it's going to do. And all separation terms in the contract would follow the contract in Florida law. So he still has a right to speak. We're not taking his right to speak. We're just taking the right away about this special hearing, which I've heard lawyers always recommend that the council sit on their hands and they don't speak, because it's just basically for the manager to talk if they had such a meeting like that. Okay, any questions from?
You want to discuss that now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Discussion, we'll start with you, Barbara.
Can you go back to the chart where it says $44,000?
Which says what, Barbara?
44,000 at the top.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me how you got to those figures and then the actual cost was substantially more?
Okay, the 44,000 is what his contract would have called for based on the statutory requirement of severance from Florida. So that's what it would have called for, minus a clawback for his housing and minus a clawback for.
Let's don't talk about him. Let's just
Okay.
talk about the contract,
Okay.
okay?
The contract for the manager, it had a clawback for housing allowance, and it had a clawback for a bonus that was in the contract. So
So-
that's how it got to 44.
Okay, so can you tell me what's included in the actual cost to city substantially more? What's
It
that
would-
look like?
It was stated to be around 165,000, but there were other things that weren't codified with numbers about PTO and other things that he was getting paid back. So I don't know what the actual total number was, because it was never told to the council.
I mean, let's take the rearview mirrors off. I don't want to talk about the former. This is about a charter moving forward. It's not based on one case. It's got to be based on we're moving forward on. And so if you want to say we don't want to pay PTO or whatever, that's good, you know, in your charter. The charter does outline what we have if somebody resigns, if somebody comes before in a hearing, and it outlines it very clearly. And if we want to change that, that's the way we change it. But
This changes solely to remove the public hearing meeting that he can request. That's all this charter amendment does. That's all it does.
Okay.
Okay? Amy, anything?
Yeah, I actually agree that this should be in their contract. In fact, that was the same idea of the other charter amendment that was proposed last year. The only one that didn't pass was talked about in the charter that we couldn't reduce compensation at any point. Like, all of that should just be in the contract. I agree wholeheartedly on that. I think because we had a charter committee last year, I don't necessarily think we should put charter amendments on the ballot this year. But that's where I'm at. So that's it.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of this one.
Steve?
And just to get clarity, this one would have to go to the ballot. This isn't one of your ordinance ones, correct?
Get that?
That's correct.
No.
We're having a hard time
Okay.
hearing you. Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just confirming that this is a amendment that needs to go to the election, not a ordinance update. Yeah, my general feeling, I'm fine with this being in the contract. I do think it's important for due process. I don't think it has to be in the charter. I would just caution, having been on the last committee for the charter, these things are not, when we get into the legalese and we get into these like contract stuff, they don't pass. So it would have to be a huge push from the community and the folks that want this, because the city can advocate and just give both sides of an argument. We can't go out and say vote yes on amendment 1. We can just tell them the pros and the cons for each that the mayor did during the last election. And the one that's similar to this, like Amy Jo had just mentioned, it didn't pass. And most of the committee thought it was a shoo-in because it just made sense. So for all of these, my recommendation would be, and I'm good with, hearing the rest of them and then doing the ordinances. But my recommendation, having been on the committee before, would be creating another committee or resurrecting the last one, and then each council member giving their suggested changes or updates or things to look into. What was frustrating serving on the committee last year, and I believe the mayor gave some edits, I think the vice mayor gave some edits, but those edits never made it to the committee. And then when the mayor and the vice mayor came to speak to us, it was very limited in what they could tell us and say to us. So my recommendation would be for us to just get the committee back together and each council member write down some things that should be looked at, and then allow the committee to vet them and go through them, and then suggest any amendments to go to the ballot. Because it is, we are changing our constitution. This isn't a thing that should be taken lightly. It's something that should happen rarely, unless it's an emergency item. But that's just my 2 cents with it all.
Steve, if you could look at section 1.14, that tells us that we need to have a mandatory committee every 10 years. So we just had one, so we're not due for another one for another 10 years. And the two ways we can change the charter is by committee or by ordinance from the council. So we're looking to follow through with the ordinance with the council. And also, been speaking with the interim lawyers. You can speak to any charter amendment you want, as long as you tell everybody it's your personal opinion and you don't use any government funds. Is this correct?
Yes, there can't be any abuse of public position. You can't be saying this is the position of Council Member District 4. You're saying that this is personal. This is not me speaking on behalf of the government. And you can't use public resources of any kind, not just funds, but public communication networks, anything like that.
Okay, Steve, so you can't use your email, you can't send out a newsletter through them about it, but you can sure say, this is my opinion of how I feel about these charters personally. So that was just one piece of information that I found very interesting when the lawyers talked to me. Now, any other discussion?
I do.
Yeah, I would just say to just the first thing, yeah, I'm aware of the two different ways. I just prefer, having the residents come in, because ultimately they're going to be the ones that have to advocate and help pass this. We can all advocate in our personal capacity, but that's limited. We have our circles. These are really from the last one. I know the mayor did multiple different meetings around around Groveland and got a lot of discussion, but it's not an easy process. But I think what helped last year was having the buy-in of 12 people that had all worked very hard on it, and they went out and worked their different networks to try to get these things through. So I don't disagree that we could do it on our own. I just personally prefer, and I would support having a committee over us doing it ourselves.
Yes, first, I'd like to clear something up, Mr. Schakowsky. I don't think the vice mayor and the mayor edited anything in those charter amendments. That's a very inflammatory statement. The charter committee did the charter. It went to our attorney, and our attorney made any edits, and then it came back, and it was voted on. On the numerous presentations around the neighborhood, I did one in Trilogy, and it was not my personal opinion, because I could not talk about my personal opinion, and it is on video that you can see, and it was done right according to the law to take those items to the public, outline them as they were written, and let the public decide for themselves. That's open to public knowledge. You can look at it, but I'd be very careful about saying that people took the committee's product and edited it quite a bit. That's not an accurate statement.
Yeah, can I clarify that?
What was that?
You could
Can I clarify that?
Huh?
He's trying to clarify what he was trying to say, I think.
Okay, yeah, please clarify.
Yeah. No, nobody edited it afterwards. I'm saying that what was supposed to happen from being at the public meetings is you all, the 5 council members before the committee was being created, gave certain recommendations, and those things never made it to the committee. And they were good recommendations that you had and that the vice mayor had. And then we were kind of hamstrung as a committee trying to do that, because once the committee was formed, you guys were limited in what you guys could say, because the attorney was there and kind of said, you could speak in broad tones, but we couldn't get exactly what was recommended, because the council members are the ones that actually deal with this day to day. So you guys are the ones that hear and see what changes. So I was actually complimenting. It wasn't that you guys, anyone edited it after the fact. I'm saying that if we were to do it again, I think it would be good to have all of the council members write down what possible, changes to, and when I say edits, I mean edits to the charter that would be helpful, and actually give it as a roadmap to the commission. To the committee. And then when it comes to the public meetings that you held, I think they were very beneficial. So that wasn't an attack, that was a compliment. And I think we should do more of them. If this were to move down the pike, I think it's going to take a lot of public buy-in to get any charter amendments through. So I'm sorry if it was breaking up or anything, but both of them were compliments of both of you, not attacks.
Okay, well, I appreciate that clarification. I know there was no malintent, but I've been in the state attorney's office more than once because things were written down.
No worries.
And been interpreted in different ways, so I appreciate that clarification. Secondly, I'm going to be probably the odd man off. I want to keep the hearing. And I just want to say, I just wanted to take out some of the items that, or add an item that if you don't go through the hearing, that you aren't entitled to anything more than your contract says. So somebody, if you say we're going to have a hearing, which I think everybody has a right to lay out their case, to say because we can't always be right 100% of the time. But if a person wants to bring in their attorney and lay it out for the public is our boss, let them lay it out. But I don't think that a person can resign prior to that and have more than you would have if you went through through that attorney process. I think it should be capped at that. Secondly, the mandatory every 10 years doesn't mean we hold one every 10 years. You can have one every year. It's mandatory that we review it at least once every 10 years. That's the minimum standard. We have had one 4 years ago. We had one last year, right? So I don't think that confines us on that issue. And really, while we're talking salary and talking compensation, I think that's a very, very big thing. Those two words mean totally different. And the public voted to keep compensation, which means the value of the car, the value of the housing, the value of everything. That's compensation. Salary was different. And so we need to find some way to separate salary and we just need to separate them too. those two, because it's very confusing. The public voted, it was a compensation issue. We went ahead and did the compensation because that's what direction we've got, but I don't think that we did a good job of saying, everybody thought we were taking somebody's salary away. Instead, we were saying, if the economy turns down and we can't afford to rent your house anymore for you, then we need to be able to cut that. If we have to take the cars and use them for police, we can't do that. We're strapping the council on how we can monitor issues if the economy goes south. So I hope we come back with some way to separate those two, the compensation versus the salary, and as you add that. But I definitely understand the frustration that we have, and we've learned from it, and as we can move forward. But I am such a believer that everybody has the right to have their day in court. If they don't want to have that day, fine, but you don't get any more, you know?
Okay, to that point, Mr. Mayor, if we dismiss a city manager for cause, I agree with you 100%. But if we dismiss a city manager with no cause, I don't agree that we need to give him a hearing, and I don't agree it needs to be in a charter. If anything, it would be in his contract. It would be a negotiated item, because it just doesn't really belong in the charter. Okay, so if you want to keep that, you can sit there and say, hey, in this contract, we can keep that. But again, it shouldn't be for, us releasing somebody without cause. And I believe you were the deciding vote not to have the hearing and just agree with the settlement.
No, they have the choice. The hearing was taken off when the resignation came in. You can't have a hearing after the resignation. The resignation was offered when the conversation was about having the hearing. You can't go ahead and say, we're going to have a hearing without you. So that wasn't the case. But I would say, and I'm only one person up here, and there's a reason why we have 5 of us. But I would definitely say we've got a great council here. I love the fact that I don't think we've had more than 2 or 3 5-0 votes, because we debate things and we all have opinions, and that's the strength of this committee. But we may always not be here. And I would hate to have the ability for somebody just to dismiss somebody. I think that is a really good, I don't want to say obstacle, but a really good thing you have to go through, because in order for you to say, we're going to take you to a hearing, you have to have documentation, you have to have proof, you have to have everything. And if you just say, hey, we don't want you, every employee has the right to go through the whole cycle, so we've communicated with him and everything, and he's our only employee. He's the only employee that we have. And so how do we handle that employee? There should be documentation, there should be facts that are laid out and all that.
Like checks and balances, kind of.
Yeah, and you sit down with the individual and you say, this is what we talked about in January, this is what we talked about last August, this is what we talked about, here's the documentation, I'm going to bring this up, we're going to have a hearing, and then the decision could be made either way, But I like the aspect personally as mayor of having a hearing, because it gets everything out in the open. And then there's not a he said, she said, oh, this and that. I like that, to have that hearing and put all the stuff up on the board, because without it, everybody's going, oh, they didn't like him, or they didn't do this, or they didn't like him. And I'm not talking about Mr. Hine. I'm talking about figuratively. When the public knows the whole story, the public can decide whether the council did something right or wrong, and the council can view that at the next election,
Okay, so how do we avoid the unbudgeted $100,000 plus settlement that the manager got? How do we avoid that in the future?
Well, legally, you have to pay the past PTO, you've got to pay the past vacation. In our contract, we say that you get, we have in the past said you get 4 weeks PTO and 4 weeks vacation a year, and it's cumulative. It doesn't stop at the end of the year.
Well, I wasn't really
And it
concerned
doesn't
about
wipe
that.
out. So if you have 7 years, you have 8 weeks times 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to pay that out. And you don't pay it out at the beginning salary, you pay it out at the end salary. And there's a lot of things like that that I'm sure when this comes before council, our human resource person can come in and say, well, this is where this is, and when we do the next contract, we should have a very strong statement about where that box is, because that box can be very big, or it can be whittled down based on how that contract starts. The point of this conversation was, does our employee have the right to appeal a decision that hasn't been formally voted on yet before the public? And I think that's the American way. I really do. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Legal opinion. What is the Florida statute for the maximum amount of severance pay? How many weeks?
I'm not sure off the top of my head what that would be. I'd have to look it
I think
up,
it's-
but.
I think it's 20.
It's 26 or 20?
20. I think it's
Yeah.
20.
It's 20 or 26.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be less than a year. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, and
pay.
so when we gave him 8 extra weeks of severance, we put it to 26. So we actually went over what the state statute was of the maximum amount of severance. So we shouldn't have done that. Back to the charter amendments, I believe it's our duty to take anything that any committee develops and brings to us and read it and review it and critique it and add our stamp to all of it. We just don't take documents from citizen committees and accept them wholesale unless they come to us perfect. And nobody's perfect, including me, including you, including everybody here. So every document has to be thoroughly reviewed by this council. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't thoroughly review something. So to say the fact that the last one didn't get a chance, you put your best foot forward, and if it came to the council and the council didn't adjust anything, great. If the council did adjust something, you should be happy with what the council did because they read your information and they took it to heart and they added their own little stamp on it. But that's our job as elected officials. They're not elected officials. We put them in that place to give us a good basis of where the public was coming from. So we have to review and adjust as we see fit. That's our right. That the citizens gave to us. They gave that right to us when they voted for us. Okay. So I'm going to look for a consensus that we move forward on removing the hearing from the charter and discuss about putting it in contracts instead.
Mayor, is it okay if I talk?
Lisa? Steve, what'd you say?
I was just asking permission to talk. I didn't want to talk over anybody. My only thing for the consensus is I get where you're coming from. We can certainly change anything that would come out of the committee if the council doesn't like something that the committee does. But I tend to agree with the mayor on a lot of what he said about the city manager position itself, the due process. What was helpful for the charter committee and what we tried to focus on was putting ourselves 15 or 20 years in the future when we went over the charter. So we pretended like all the council members were different, all of the staff members were different, and just went through because what happened previously with Mr. Hine is not going to be the same situation. You know, if we have another city manager and they only last a year and a half, it's going to be a different determination that the council makes on what kind of, splitting of the ways we want to do. So I would just keep that in mind. My only thing for the consensus is I would be totally fine with sending this to a new committee and having them go over it. I just wouldn't be for sending this straight to the ballot. But I'm only one vote.
Thank you, Steve. Can make sure you keep everything germane to the subject. We were just talking about the charter amendment. We weren't talking about the old manager per se. Thank you. Anybody else?
Are we just commenting on a consensus?
Consensus.
Okay, so no.
I was originally on your side until discussion came up about bring it to the public and let them see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So with that, I can't consent with you, Mike.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you very much, Barbara. Should we discuss a different approach? If you don't want to do a charter amendment, that we should sit there and put something on us that we don't go over what our contracts with our employees say?
If I'm correct, I think this is consensus on, do we want to do a ordinance?
Yeah.
So, and I think what I'm hearing is we should put it before the voters. That's what Steve said. I think that's kind of what I heard. I believe that. And I'll tell you, not because I really enjoy putting things on the ballot, but what would happen if we passed it in an ordinance, there would be 25,000 people saying, why did they do that? Because we hadn't explained it, if it goes on the ballot, it comes up before
Well,
public
it
meeting.
wouldn't be an option to put it as an ordinance because it's in the charter now. So to take it out of the charter, it has to go to the voters.
Well, I thought you said this could be done without
I
ordinance.
said the two in the end.
Not
C and D are ordinances.
Oh, I'm sorry,
A
I
and B are
misunderstood. I
amendments,
thought it
yes.
was an ordinance issue. So, yeah, I mean, I think the voters have been very, very wise over the past 10 years in what they've done, and they voted in things that I wasn't popular with me, but they've done it right. So let the public who pays the taxes determine how we move forward.
Okay, we're going to move on because we do not have a consensus for the first item. The second item would be Amendment B, and that would be a fair transition for District 2 and 4 and a clean term limit structure. The way it's set up right now is District 2 and 4 would end their 2-year term and then run for a single-year term, and then again after that run for a 4-year term. That single term could cost the city up to $100,000. And what I'm proposing is that we increase the term for 2 and 4 to 3 years and bring that to the public. Now, the public has already decided that they want term limits and that they want 4-year terms. So extending a term to 3 years is not outside of what the public asked for when they approved the amendment. Is this correct, Mr. Lawyer?
Well, there's possibly a question of timing, depending on, saying what the voters wanted, and when they've elected certain individuals, the term was so long, and then the subsequent, so it might be overstating what the voters want. You don't want to necessarily put too many words in the voter's mouth.
Right.
But it would not be inherently contradictory for them to say that it is in keeping with the most recent decisions by the voters to have kind of a uniformity in the approach.
Okay, and it's also a very legal thing to do, to extend a term for 1 year based on the fact that we're going to the voters to ask them if they wish to do that.
Yeah, so long as it's approved, and yeah.
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 Okay. Now, what that would do is that would put District 2 and 4 in 2028 into the term limits. And everybody in 2028 will now be under term limits, instead of having that 1-year election. Now, that 1-year election is not only going to be costly to the city, it's going to be costly to the candidates. And maybe the candidates don't want to go through a 1-year election, and they'll just drop out because they figure it's just too tough. I mean, Groveland elections sometimes aren't nice. Sometimes they get rough. Sometimes there's slinging with it involved. Now, that's something that, you're putting District 2 and 4 through that extra hassle. Now, I spoke to a few people about what the committee did when they decided, and they had an option for 5, and they didn't take it. They didn't have an option for 3. So as far as I know, for the 3 years was never discussed. But I feel that the 3 years would be fair to the city, it would be fair to District 2 and 4, and it would be fair to the public. So now I'll open it up to questions.
Ask Steve first, he was on that committee.
Okay, Steve, is that correct?
I believe I was the one that mentioned 3 years. I was outvoted. I'll be very transparent. I was not a huge fan of the 1-year term, but it was like a 8-1 vote. Nita did go over with us, like, and I believe the 3 years and 4-year were mentioned, and possibly a 5-year. So we did talk about several different options because Mineola was brought up, because I think I brought up Mineola because they did 3-year terms on their way to 4-year terms. So I do believe there was brought up, and I was, passionate and not for a 1-year term.
Okay.
I don't want to, keep count. I respect the committee and I respect council who all played the bat. So,
Barbara?
Honorable Mayor, I asked someone, I didn't feel it was fair for me to ask Stephen. So I asked Jen Eastridge, who was on the committee, to come and give her side, because there's always your side, their side, and somewhere in the middle, the truth. So if you don't mind, I would like for her to come up and speak.
Okay, absolutely. Do you want to have the council speak first?
Well, that is my speech, so.
Okay.
But let me just say this. On one of your slides for the other proposal, this is what you have at the bottom. The voters will have the final word. A vote to place these on the, I can't read, I wrote it in shorthand, is a vote to, for a discussion or for the people of Groveland. So now, Mr. J. Cox.
I
now
agree with
we
that
can't-
wholeheartedly.
We can't have it both ways now. You're saying, you're saying the vote of the people is the final word, but now when it comes to this, for the amendment for this, you want to switch up. So which way is it now, Mike?
Okay, before we ask Jen to come up and continue your speech, if I was on the council when that came up to me, I would have said we should give the people 2 options. We should give them a 3-year and the 2 and the 1. So that's what I would have said to that. Now, what that statement was, it was anything that we propose will be going to the voters, and it will be their final choice. I didn't mean that as a final choice that now this is in stone and it never could be adjusted. Everything can be adjusted every year, every single time, if we feel it's necessary. It's not locked in stone forever. Okay? If the voters had an option for a 3-year or a 2 and a 1, we don't know how they would have decided. So we're only asking them to say, hey, the city wants to save some money, the city wants to save the candidates some grief of running 3 elections in 3 years. That's basically what you're asking 2 and 4 to do, is to run 3 elections in 3 years. And no one asked 1, 3, and 5 to do that, but 2 and 4 has to run 3 elections in 3 years. So I mean, it really is a strain on it, and we're asking the people. The people could say no, and then we'll have to live with it, but we should give the choice to the people when we can, and we should hear.
But Mike, we didn't give the choice to the people. No?
It wasn't all the people. I didn't have a choice in there. I wasn't on the committee, and it came to the ballot, and I didn't have a choice before it went on the ballot. I voted no for it. That's the only thing I had the ability to do, but now I'm here. and I'd like to bring it in front of everybody. Jen, would you like to come up and talk?
Jan.
Do I have to say my name and address and all that, Mayor?
What's that?
Do I have to say my name and address and all that?
I think your
Probably
address is
best.
protected, but you
It
need
is
to say your name.
protected. Jen Eastridge, my address is protected. So Stephen is right. He did bring up the 3-year. The reason that the 3-year was shot down initially, and you're the new attorney, by the way, I'm really impressed with you. High five. So the reason the 3-year was shot down is because you applied for a 2-year position. You didn't apply for a 3-year. So the way it was described to us is that you can't push for a 3-year when your application is for a 2-year. So that immediately removed the 3-year option from 2025, moving it out to 2028.
Okay,
Okay?
before you go on, can we have the lawyer answer that? Because I've already
Absolutely.
spoke to the lawyer, and they say it's perfectly legal. It would have been legal if you asked for 3 years to begin
Let
with.
the lawyer say that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
let the lawyer, you
So-
don't have to give the legal to
Okay.
him.
Well,
We
and-
pay him.
But that's what I was saying earlier about when you're saying is this inconsistent with what the voters wanted? What they wanted when they elected the folks for the 2-year term was for you to serve a 2-year term, right? And so I don't think that it is a violation of the law for those voters to subsequently say it is okay to extend that to a 3-year term, but you couldn't pass just like an ordinance just on your own that would do that. You would have to get the voters' permission again to clarify that. That's the degree to which I'm saying. If you want, you can't just retrofill what the voters want because they passed a subsequent amendment that impacted other people's votes.
Yeah.
Right,
And
so-
then from what Jen is also giving kind of the rationale of the committee too, not just what is like, could it have been legally possible? Probably, but when they were discussing it and when Jen and I and the others were bringing it up, now that she mentions that was a big part of it, the folks that were applying for a 2-year spot, and then we would extend it past that. So I'm not sure it's just the legal aspect. Could it be done? It was more of the precedent we'd be setting, and if I'm right, Jen.
Yeah.
Steve,
So-
can we keep the comments to after Jen finishes speaking? I was just bringing the lawyer in because Jen said they legally thought in the committee that they couldn't do a 3-year term. That was the only reason I brought the lawyer into it. So if you could just wait until Jen finishes, then we can continue the conversations. Sorry, Jen.
So the other thing that we were discussing is we're going to go for the wasteful elections, right? That was the big reason for the 4-year push. It was to get us on the same schedule as state. Because currently your seat 2, and then Stephen's seat 4, you guys run on off seasons. So you get a fraction of the people that actually show up as if it was a presidential election or if it was a governor race. So the whole discussion on this, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like a whole meeting that we were discussing this, right? So it was, how can we save the city's money, right? Because I think the number that we came up with was like 98 something. It was very close to the $100,000. The other option is nobody runs against you guys in 2027, and it saves everybody all that money.
So if we eliminate the 2027 election, we eliminate the cost of the city, we eliminate the cost of the candidates. We ask the voters if we can eliminate that 1-year term. And if they say yes, everybody saves money, everybody saves time, and we don't have to have an election on an off cycle, which we're going to have a very low participation in it. You just stated it yourself. So if we would have asked the voters both those questions, if we brought, hey, we can't decide between the two of them, you decide between the two of them.
You can't do that. You can't have multiple choice on a ballot.
Yeah,
You
it's
got
a yes or a no.
of a specific thing.
Yeah, it has to be binary. It's either, is this going to be the thing you vote for, yes or no? You can't have of these options, which would you prefer?
Okay, so with the Florida, the government decided when they came back and they gave the governor 6 different versions of the property tax to be put on the ballot, that you tell me that would be illegal based on Florida law?
He has to pick one that goes on the ballot. That's not, it's not a whole bunch of different things. That's correct.
So when they were going to come up with 6 options,
But but they didn't, is my point.
because the governor said, no, I ain't going to take that.
They had to debate it out. We were
Yeah,
up
they
there,
had to
remember?
debate
And-
and pick the one they wanted. They had to pick the final one
They're
they
doing
wanted
that right
that
now.
got to the ballot.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll disagree with that, but that's okay. So you see how this works out? It's another off-year election. There's no time limit on this.
No, I know, yeah,
So,
we're good.
It's another off-year election that's going to be, partially, followed, and we're going to spend up to $100,000 on it.
Right.
I'm trying to save us $100,000.
I get it.
So can we ask the public to save us $100,000 and just extend the term? It's legally possible if the public agrees.
You can ask the public to change the color of the sky if you want to.
Right, so all we're doing is we're
But I'm here
asking the
to tell
public
you
if they
what
want to
the
save the money.
charter committee was discussing and
Okay.
why we chose that. Our options,
Mm-hmm.
Stephen did bring up the 3. The 3 was not an option because your application for election was for 2 years. It was not for 3 years.
Okay.
Okay, so you can't ask to change something during the middle of a running. And I'm just going off of what the last attorney said, okay? So, all right, so that pushes out the 3. Our next option was the 2027 or bump it out even further.
Okay,
So this was a huge discussion going back and forth between everybody. And the idea is that we wanted to get everybody on that cycle as soon as possible. We didn't want to continue doing all these different elections. So the easiest, quickest, cleanest way that the committee saw to get everybody on that 4-year term was to do the 2027. Do I think that it's wasteful? Yeah, I think your election was wasteful.
okay,
just
so,
was.
question for you. The previous lawyer misquoted. When I got on this council, I gave the lawyer a document that happened down in Miami, where a judge said, home rule, the people have to decide if you want, because Miami wanted to extend their term, and they did it by ordinance, and it was ruled unconstitutional. And the judge also came back and said, if you would have asked the people, it would have been constitutional to extend a term, to match up to better. So the lawyer telling you what the lawyer told you, that it wasn't legal, was a disservice, because when I asked and gave her the court case, she said, no, Mike, you're right. You can do it because you're asking the people for home rule.
So the prior attorney went back and forth on a lot of things. That's why she's not sitting in
Excuse
that
me,
seat
can
anymore.
I step in? Listen, we need to address the council. She's here to give us the background. It's not a debate against the public, against the council. It's these
No,
people, so-
this is Barbara's advocate, so I was just discussing it
Well,
with
then address Barbara. I mean, there's some decorum.
I'm sorry.
We gotta stick to that decorum.
So Barbara, if you were unaware, I sent a memo to the former lawyer, and I gave her that court case. And when I first put this up, and everybody asked, is this legal? And she came back and she answered, and she said, yes. Is that correct, Mr. Temporary City Manager? Do you remember that?
I don't recall that.
Oh, okay, okay. I can pull the email out from her and everything like that. So when Jen was discussing that it was, something that they were told they couldn't do, that was erroneous.
But they had to go with the information.
They had to go with the
that
information they did,
The
so-
information that they had at the
Right, so
time.
we're really not working against what the committee had in mind, because they felt, they were told that they couldn't do it. And even Stephen brought it up, and they were told they couldn't do it, which was wrong. They should not have been told that.
Just because it was brought up in discussion doesn't mean that it would have gone through. We discussed a lot of things. So one of the great things about Stephen being on that is he plays devil's advocate a lot. Whether he likes the idea or he doesn't like the idea, he brings it up. So just because it was brought up doesn't mean that it was up for consideration. So let's not jump to that conclusion.
Okay. Do you have anything else then?
I don't know, do you have any more questions?
No,
Okay,
not for you.
Thank you.
So Barbara,
No, I've got something to say, though. I
thank
get
you,
a
Jen.
turn. Do I get a turn now?
I'll come back to you. Do you want to finish any other
Barbara,
points or
you
any
too.
conversations before I move on?
I want you to solemnly swear after this meeting today, you will never bring this up again.
Okay,
All right.
No, I don't. I applaud your tenaciousness. I applaud your tenaciousness, but I need you to swear you'll never bring this up again, Mike J. Cox.
Barbara, I will never swear that. I will bring it up every single week, and I will bring it everything.
Lord
But what I will tell you right now,
Cry.
I will tell you right now is I'm going to stop the conversation and say, is there any consent for this to move forward?
I didn't even get to talk yet, you guys.
Get your input.
Like, do I even get a
think it's
turn?
going to.
Oh, no, I have something important.
Okay, absolutely.
Have you called the Florida Ethics Commission to discuss this proposal?
Excuse me?
Because there's, yes, the city saves money, but there's a perspective here that two people directly benefit. And when that happens, the best case forward to see if you would need to recuse yourself, and Stephen also from the vote, would be to call the Florida Ethics Commission and verify with them to protect yourself and to make sure. And the Florida Ethics Commission, generally charter amendments are considered like politically sensitive in and of itself. So especially involving incumbency. So with that said, I don't think we should even discuss it until that step is done, especially with you being the one bringing it up and pushing it.
Okay, the courts have said.
But did you call, like, because that's a
No,
whole
I
separate thing.
did not speak to the state ethics
I
committee.
would call them and just verify and make sure that you're allowed, because even if it's legal, it's not always considered ethical.
Okay.
Remember, Lee, the law is the floor. Morally is the ceiling, and ethically is somewhere in between.
If it's ethical, would you change your mind?
I have a personal opinion on it that I believe that changing the results of an election after the election is wrong.
Okay, all I'm trying to do
So
is
to me,
move-
I just
is
think
move
it's
the
wrong.
meeting on.
Because here's the thing, if we move forward and put it forth as a charter amendment, the whole city votes on it, right?
Yes,
The whole city doesn't vote on you sitting in that seat.
right.
The whole city doesn't vote on Stephen sitting in his seat.
Correct.
So now the whole city is speaking for District 2 and for District 4, and I feel like that is also wrong. So I don't feel like it's the saying of the voters. Like, we're taking the power out of those districts' hands and giving it to the citywide. So those are like the issues I kind of see with it.
Okay.
Now, but the first one, like, definitely make sure it's ethical. And it might be because it does save the city. Like, there is the $100,000 that it could save the city. But
Yeah,
that's where I was.
I would point out almost certainly you guys would have to recuse yourself from a vote if this makes it like because it would directly impact you and have a personal benefit. It would basically be the other three council members who would be voting on the final moving towards ordinance. So you can bring it up, but neither of you would be able to vote. So that's just what I want to make sure that's transparent. So that's
Before
everyone
we
has that
get there and
yeah.
vote on it.
If
and do
it
all
gets to that point.
Okay.
I just
so,
don't want to put
but-
anybody in a bad position with us voting on it before you check.
Based on the conversations right now, I'm going to end this discussion because it does not seem like there's any backing from the three people who do get to vote. And I know you didn't get to speak on it, maybe, but is there something?
Charter for specifics to interact with the CFO with limitation. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, John. Mr. Mayor, do you want to elaborate more on a charter, or do you want to come back to a different meeting and discuss
Yeah,
that?
it's not on the agenda, and everybody hasn't had the chance to think about it. I think it's for later.
Give more chance to check out the legal aspect too, and that'll help us solidify exactly what that narrow channel might be we would have. So.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for listening and participating, especially you, Barbara. I always like hearing comments from you.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
done. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Mayor.
very much for that and for that progress. Next on the agenda will be City Hall location, and that's Tim. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to provide a really short introduction. Mr. Jeffrey Mallon is here. I know he has to leave by 12 to get to his next meeting. I appreciate you all making time for him to provide a presentation today. This is upon request of City Council. Last year, we provided Mr. Mallon's first iterative of the analysis for site locations for Civic Complex. I was looking at a new City Hall. As you know, we're bursting at the seams with our growth today. And as we grow further, there's really not much in the way of current office space. Also looking at opportunities to activate city-owned properties and get those into the CRA on the private development side. Mr. Mallon looked at about 20 different criteria areas as part of this analysis. He looked at population growth. He looked at access and transportation, where the growth is coming, where it is today. And without further ado, Mr. Mallon, would you like to start the presentation? Then I'll interact as needed.
Yeah, well, I appreciate this very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me here to do this work for you. It's very important work. This is a need you really have.
Sir, just sorry for the record, can you give us your name and address? Just so
Oh,
we're-
yes,
yeah.
sir, sure. My name's Jeffrey Mowen. I live at 1114 Croton Place in Celebration, Florida.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. And this project for me has been ongoing for quite a while, and I've been working with Tim and the staff who've been very helpful in providing a lot of information for us. So what you see in this report, which I hope you have the actual document that was, this is sort of a summary of that document, so I'm going to try and go through this quickly and allows for some conversation and discussion and questions and answers. So thank you again for inviting me here to do this. And what I'd like to start with is just this general population growth that's projected by the Schimberg organization at University of Florida. And what this shows us across the top is the different dates, 2010, 2020, 25, 30, and so on and so forth. And on the left are the different age groups in years. But down at the bottom is really what I want to point to. The total numbers currently in 2025 is 25,464,000 people currently living in all of Groveland. This is not the southern section or the northern section, it's all of Groveland. And if you notice, by 2030, it goes up about 6,000 people, right? And by 2035, it goes up another 6,000 people. By 36, 1 year after that, it's about 1,000 more. And in 2040, it's another 4,000 more. So essentially, it's going up 1,000 people per year. That's what this is telling us in all of Groveland. That's the growth rate that this study is really telling us. It starts to taper off at the end a little bit, and I'm not sure why. Perhaps projections and statistics become less reliable as time goes on, but that's the data that comes to us in terms of population
This is also the
growth.
same data we're looking at as part of the comp plan. So you might be asking yourself the reason, why are you going from 5-year to 1-year increments? It's basically to line up with those 10 and 20-year critical increments of time. So yeah.
Yep. So this diagram, there's two images here. The one on the left is current subdivisions that are active, right? So we can see in the yellow in the southern section, and the pink is the northern section. And those are our current active subdivisions. On the right is simply an analysis of our wastewater treatment facility capacity. So it's divided into two sections, the Sampy Road one and the one up above. What's the name of that one up above? I can't read it.
Hill City North.
Yeah.
And Sunshine.
Thank you, Sunshine. The yellow indicates what needs to add capacity to accommodate all of that development. We need to add capacity to the Sunshine facility in order to manage and handle all of the wastewater treatments that is required for that new construction that's going on to the north. And you can see the red line where it's completely divided, and the two red dots are where the facilities are located. So I think that's an important consideration, that we have to add facilities for growth. I want to take a step back here a little bit and identify the difference between suburban sprawl and sort of a monolithic growth pattern that we see in many American cities. This top drawing shows how cities grow horizontally, primarily through the use of automobiles and trains and other ways to get around. A traditional city where most communities in the United States are turning to, I was just in Northwest Arkansas where they had Congress for New Urbanism talking about the way cities should grow. There were several cities under examination in that Congress. A traditional neighborhood development design is based on a standard of a 10-minute walk. We are trying desperately to do away with the requirement to have automobiles to get around. It's expensive, It's economically difficult for most families to afford all the automobiles. It's environmentally not friendly, and it's causing lots of health conditions that we're dealing with now. So the ideal way to develop is in small increments in a kind of polycentric way. This is a good thing for you because you have a community that is polycentric. You have a northern section and you have a southern section. They are two separate conditions, two separate places. And if you try and link them together completely, it's very difficult. Everyone would have to use the automobile to get around. Orlando is a pretty good model for this polycentric condition where there's Baldwin Park, there's College Park, there's the urban core, there's all of these different center nodes that grow independently and almost concentrically within themselves, and that's a very healthy thing. So I think this is a good recognition to understand how Groveland could and should grow. In fact, your urban land development code is built and designed that way. It works very well that way. This diagram on the left shows cities as a parasite, and it's sort of a three-dimensional version of what we just looked at. The city center with the suburban growth to the sides, and then a suburban city without a city, or suburbs without the city, and then the bottom drawing on the bottom left are a series of small cities growing. So it just reiterates the same point. The other thing that I want to identify is that a traditional city, a good city, a healthy city, has a fabric of buildings, a fabric where residential is and commercial is, and the civic buildings and the iconic buildings, the churches, the city halls, the community buildings, are interspersed within that fabric. And that allows for healthy growth built on existing infrastructure, right? So that drawing on the right is just a diagram that illustrates that condition that is very healthy and an appropriate way to develop. This drawing on the left shows the current population of the southern town core. This is a map of Groveland and its perimeter edges, and the southern town core section is where we are at right now. There's about 25,000 people here in this circle, and their median income is about $77,000. The upper circle shows a much smaller population currently, about 9,000 people, and their median income is $97,000 per household. The map on the right shows entitlements, development that has been approved, and some of it is not underway yet, but has been approved, so it's on the books. And you can see in the top right where all of the green and blue is at. That's Bright Hill mostly, and Villa City. So those are future developments that have not been built yet. And you can see that population is projected to be about 55,000 people, and the median income is to be determined exactly what that is, probably similar to what's happening currently. And the growth rate of what's happening in the southern section of the town core is about 30,000 people. However, those entitlements in the southern area do not include the areas in the town core that your land development code allows for extensive growth in your town core. And I'll show that in a second. Now, we've looked at these 5 different sites. And let me go back one, sorry. You can see the little numbers, 1, 2 in the southern core and the 3, 4, 5 in the northern section. Those are the 5 different sites we've examined, right?
There's one other quick caveat just to add to this. So Bright Hill, for instance, entitled over 6,000 units, likely coming in closer to about 3,000, roughly half. There are some developments that likely will not maximize entitlements, but for the purpose of this, we looked at what those max entitlements would be for both the north and south, just to be accurate based on what zoning allows today.
So here's a sort of zoomed-in section of the town core with sites 1 and 2, which were part of the first study we did. Site 1 here at the Purrier Building location, and Site 2 next to Festival Park. The pink plats in there are what you own. It's what the city owns right now. So all of that land you currently own. And there is infrastructure nearby and associated with that, with those sites. On the right, you'll see the Site 3, the Carol Fulmer site, and Site 4 is the Holiday Inn site, and Site 5 is the Bright Hill site. And all three of those sites were also studied as well. So you can see our little green and red dots in the upper left corner. The key thing that we've identified here is that the three other sites to the north are really not walkable. The Site 3 and 4 are only accessible by automobiles, right? So people can't really get to it unless you drive to it. And there's no residential neighborhoods around those. Site 5 in the Bright Hill section is part of their town core when it comes. So that could be a very viable site when that development happens. And that could be walkable from the neighborhoods in that area. But as you can see, it's down by the bottom edge, and the neighborhoods are really to the north of that zone. So that is still a little bit less walkable, I would say, from what you have in the town core. The other thing this points out is your current land use development zoning map on the left shows the town core, the town center, and town edge has development in it and a whole bunch of potential future development. That drawing on the right is about a third of what could be built in the town center. Using your rules of code in the code, you could add all of that yellow, those yellow buildings are future potential buildings. There's nothing designed, there's nothing being proposed here. It's just, well, what could you do under the current land use code and our zoning regulations? You could add about 1 million square feet of residential development in the town center. The code allows that. Whether it would be done over, the next 10, 20, 40 years, that's to be determined. But you can see there's a lot of missing pieces and a lot of opportunity in the town center. So I wanted
Just another quick caveat, Jeffrey, to remind the group, it's a mixed-use zoning, so it doesn't necessarily just have to be residential or
That's
any
right.
residential. It could be commercial,
Yes.
office, non-residential uses too.
Totally mixed use, yep. So that's to be determined. So this is on-street parking. This is just a reiteration of what was in the first study, looking at the per your site, this location right here, and identifying all of the potential parking around this area for the use of that building and that location. So that essentially what that shows. And the purple circle is a half-mile radius, a 10-minute walk within that zone. So people in that area could be, very close to that site. Here is that site. The one caveat to this site is there are two parcels, that 1C and 1D, which are not owned by the city. And in our first study, we identified you'd have to purchase those sites in order to put the entire complex that you wanted to build on the site. We'd have to buy those sites and develop this site. And there's how it could lay out. The 42,000 square foot, 3-story building with a library next to it. And then the use of the other current tax, where it says tax collector's office, is the building across the street, the current town hall, so to speak. I won't read through this, but that's part of the report. It's just the summary there identifies the advantages and disadvantages of that site, and there's a picture of it. Site 2, Festival Park, has some very good advantages here because it's within the existing infrastructure that's here, and the improvements that are coming with the Highway Route 50 reroute could easily add to the intersections and potential improvements around this site, particularly with parking, which was part of the study done where it says, see where it says 77 parking spaces on the right there? That is part of that whole study that was done. So this site also has additional parking all around it on the blocks as well. And that's how it could actually fit on the site. Where it says tax collector's office and the library, those could also be commercial developments that you spin off to another developer and add to the value of the property. So that's sort of the summary there. Site 3, this Carol Fulmer site, is now actually under contract and no longer available, so to speak. It's 24 acres. It's big, and there are a lot of buildings on it already. And just for scale comparison, you can see in the upper right corner, we identified the size of the town hall and the library up there, how it could fit in one little corner of the site. So dividing up the site could be logical. Using some of the existing buildings could be logical, but unfortunately it is now, we just found out recently that it's under contract with somebody else. So that's an issue. And there's the total detailed report there. This site where the hotel is, the former Holiday Inn, is actually a very difficult site from two perspectives. One is that the way you get in and out of the site is on Highway 27 here. And that is a right-in only site. You could turn right going out, but engineers would have to study this very carefully, but there's really no way to turn left onto 27. So it's a right-in, right-out only site. There is topography on the site, so that's challenging. The building itself, in walking through and around that building, is very questionable. It has not been habited for a long time, and the electricity's off. So I'm concerned about mold. I'm concerned about many aspects of this building being under code requirements and would have to be brought up to code and checked and analyzed. Also, from a program standpoint, shoehorning your way into those little motel units for different uses that the city needs can be very difficult. When you look at the program elements in the study that was done for your needs analysis, it's very difficult to maneuver that building and change that building to fit the program needs. And I don't want to get into all of those details, but it doesn't lend itself to the uses that have been outlined in the analysis. And alternatively, this site could be a great site to expand your wastewater treatment plant. That was thrown out by TJ the other day about, wow, that could be a fantastic site just to expand that capacity on that site, because that's quite limited up there, the wetlands above it, and you're limited by the Highway 19 and the on-ramps as well. Difficult site to use. And there's a layout just for scale purposes. You could tear the whole thing down and build this, no problem. You still have the right-in, right-out access issue to deal with. Excuse me, I have a sore voice, but yeah. Thank you. So this is Site 5, the Bright Hill site, and it is front and center as you enter into Bright Hill, right on the Collector Road access road. So it could be a fairly prominent, visually dominant building as you enter into this new commercial zone. All of the pink area above it, for some reason, all these little colored dots are coming out weird. That shouldn't be there. I think
It looks like confetti, I like it.
Thank you. Anyways, the pink is the commercial zone. The tan area to the right is multifamily. And then, the neighborhoods up above it are all residential neighborhoods. So in a way, it's accessible mostly by vehicular access, but could be a very prominent site and useful. And there could be some kind of negotiation with Bright Hill on how to get that site. But there is no infrastructure there now. There's no roads, there's no sewer, there's nothing there now. So the timing of this site could be stretched out quite a ways. We don't know what that timing is, and it's not in your hands to manage completely. Excuse me. Oops. Okay, there's that analysis. So I come to these pieces, and I can't even read them. I have to get to mine. That's why I brought my own. But we've done a kind of a detailed analysis, and I just want to point out, over on the left, you'll see the evaluation criterias under current development status is outlined, parcel size, existing structures, access to transportation, walkability, surrounding land conditions, infrastructure readiness. All of these are completely outlined, and when you start going down to the very bottom, you see the overall competitiveness, we call it. How do these fit in terms of all of these different analysis? And what you see is Site 1 and Site 2 are the two downtown. Site 2 is the Festival Park site. If I were to vote, I would vote for Site 2 because it has everything going for it. It has the accessibility, it has the new route coming in, which will give vehicular access to it, direct vehicular access to it. And it has walkability, it has a current infrastructure, it has a site that you already own. There's so many aspects there that, bottom line, that turned out to be the highest rated one in our evaluation. And the other ones are the Bright Hill one is fairly good. And you can read through this detail and ask me any questions about it. I don't want to read it all because you can hardly see it from up there. But and then we did this economic evaluation, which breaks it down into land cost, ownership, existing structures to demolish. Sometimes we have numbers for these things, sometimes we just, it's conjecture, we don't know exactly what the numbers are. So these are broad stroke evaluations on the economics of this. And again, at the very bottom, we have highlighted with stars this time, 5 stars, 4 stars, 3, 2, and 1, the sort of quick evaluation of the various economic factors that go into analyzing these sites. So I don't want to read through all that, but that's the end of my presentation. I just wanted to outline all of this for you and offer some time for questions and answers or discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Amy Jo.
Okay. I think looking at all of this, I do agree that maybe Site 2 is our best option. I don't think we abandon the idea entirely of Bright Hill or having a civic complex in Bright Hill with the huge population we're going to end up with there. We may need things like a police substation, like just additional support staff on that side of the town. So maybe if we can negotiate something with them to get something built there or something, at least the piece of land that we can build on later or whatever. I think negotiations should continue there as well, but that's kind of where I'm at. If we can afford to build the city hall, because that was my initial concern. I do like the site that we already own and don't have to buy.
Thank you. Barbara?
I'm super excited that Festival Park came out as #1.
Dick Cox.
The population study, is that a study that was completed in 2026, or is that when you made the slide?
Let's go back to the top of that. I'm pushing the wrong button. Oops. I lost the presentation. Can we get it back?
Jeremiah, can we pull up the slides again?
I wanted to identify which study we're talking about. There it is. Thank you.
Page 2.
Page 2, right. So page 2 was done by the
Schimberg model.
Schimberg Group. And
That's February of 2026.
yeah, it's 2026. And it was done, I think, in 2025. I got it from your staff.
It looked retroactively to the Schimberg.
Okay. So
is out of the University of Florida. They do these studies every year, and we typically use them for comprehensive plan updates.
Okay, so I don't think it takes in the pullback. We have seen a pullback in permit issues for residential houses this year 50%. You know, so this isn't showing, it projects basically the same number all the way across.
There's macro
So-
updates nationally that might drive it lower in some years, and then some years it might outpace the growth.
Right,
But
but-
typically, over the long-term spectrum, if you look back retroactively in the last 20 years, it ends up calculating, not necessarily on every year the same, but long-term, it's usually on that track. But there's things like interest rates and the housing, national slowdown that do have an impact in terms of our growth on a
Right.
year-to-year
It
basis.
pushed out the growth basically on the same number, not too far from the number before the year. That was basically what I was getting at. And it didn't take into account the actual pullback that's happening now. Let's see, the Days Insight. The Days Insight, do you know that the three properties directly next to it are for sale right now?
I don't think they are. The one to the north is your stormwater management facility.
No, the ones directly next to it,
To the right?
they're all for sale.
They're all for sale?
You're right. So if the city acquired them, there's an intersection right there, and that would allow for north and south travel on the 27.
Yep.
Just if you were able to get the one right next to it, and then include that and have a side road going to it. So that,
Very possible.
It shouldn't be ruled out because it only had a right or a left-hand turn
Very
available.
possible, very possible.
Okay. And since
You'd
I've
have to, on that note, you'd have to improve the intersection. I'm sure the state is going to say, oh, you got this much traffic coming in, you're going to have to turn lanes, maybe signalize it. It's significant.
So that to me is not a drawback.
It maybe actually could be connected to what's happening across the street too, with other development,
Okay.
possibly.
Did you have a study or look or inspect the building?
I drove by and walked the site, but that's all I did. I didn't go into the building. I couldn't get in the building. I didn't examine the current structure for anything. If you want to do a real study, that's an extensive process that I think you should have a building inspection done on a separate scope.
Okay. This is a masonry building, so it's basically a big outside box with all these little boxes inside that aren't structural.
Right.
So just because they're broken out as little rooms doesn't mean that you can't take out a wall or two and expand everything, because they are non-structural. They're just there as placements.
Sure.
So that's not an opposition to it again. So-
Current circulation is outside right now, so you would have to either, if you start analyzing the needs for the city hall that was done, spatially, that's a challenge. I would identify that as a challenge to shoehorn into that building type, particularly with larger conference rooms and meeting spaces like this. They don't exist.
What is your general estimate based on the proposals that you showed for those three buildings?
Estimate of cost,
Total, yeah.
total value, I don't have that.
So you have no idea how much it's going to cost to construct any of that?
No, I have no
Okay.
idea. First, we would need to do a building inspection, have, a complete analysis of structural integrity, of.
No. I'm asking you about the three proposed buildings that you showed: a library, a tax assessor.
Oh, the other buildings.
Right. How much is all
Right,
that?
so we were estimating 42,000 square feet at about $500 a square foot. So what is that, $22 million, $24 million?
Okay, the number that's been floating around is $55 million for that building for 57,000 square feet.
57 was what the study reported, 57,000, but in talking with staff and everybody else, we thought, well, that could be dialed back and
That
still
was the first
achieve
study
needs.
before Jeffrey's studies, I believe, right? From the
Yeah.
David Samuels study.
Yeah.
So what is the library building itself?
The library was scheduled at 12,000 square feet, and the price for that would be similar, $500 a square foot, projecting out whenever you build it. So that's $6 million.
Okay. So, and what tax collector?
Tax collector was 14,000 square feet, and That probably doesn't need to be the same value price, it's probably $300 a foot. So we were saying 300 times, what's that, 4,500, 4 million possibly?
Basically, you're in the high 40s now, pretty close to what it was
For
before.
all together, right. And
Right.
we talked a lot about partnering with the county, because the library is not a city function, it's the county's jurisdiction, and they have a building, so it was discussed, well, maybe we don't do a library, or, those were just what-ifs, what could we fit on the site?
Right. Did you?
If I could interject on that. So originally, when we did the first analysis, it was a previous council, there's interest in doing a tax collector and library in tandem with the city hall. The city at that point was in no obligation or interest in necessarily building it for them or paying for the tax collector or even paying for the library. It was possibly to provide land, but then also have them construct on that land. So we wouldn't necessarily build their buildings into our cost.
The idea was to have synergy between the different uses.
Right.
So as the library
Shared
has a
parking,
meeting room, you
stormwater,
might use
things of
it,
that nature.
or vice versa.
Okay, the way, I'm just going based on the way it was
Civic
explained to
complex.
me, that the tax collector would be renting the building from us, and we would be getting income with it and stuff like that. And the library was on us, yeah, sure, we could ask for grants and things, but it was still going to be, owned as a growing business.
Yeah, the concept that we talked about with the library is that they would use library impact fees toward construction, also selling their existing site along State Road 50, activating that for private development, and using those land proceeds with the sale to contribute toward the construction of it. So there's some synergistic financial options and opportunities there with partnering with the library system. But yeah, no obligation necessarily to increase our price. From my perspective, just building a city hall would be a substantial effort for us financially.
Okay, what's the difference between renovating a building and building it from scratch as far as cost?
So not much, generally. Depending on the building that you have and how adaptable it is into your new program, it could be very low. The cost for renovating a building, particularly historic buildings which are very substantially structurally sound and fit your program needs. So you could adapt this building for many different uses, and the cost could be very minimal. The cost of renovating a commercial building that is a motel versus a use like a civic use could be substantial. I couldn't speak to the exact numbers of that existing building to identify fitting that whole program into this site for substantial savings compared to tearing it down and rebuilding from scratch. We'd really have to examine the building itself more carefully and find out what the condition of that building is in, and then identify whether or not the program could fit into that scenario, which in my mind was challenging when I was just looking at it from a perspective of walking around it and seeing the numbers and the square footage. It's challenging, and you would have a lot of sacrificial things happening, like walking outside on a daily basis to go from room to room to room. And the cost difference between renovating and new construction sometimes is more expensive.
Okay, basically, this is a 67,000 square foot shell. Everything in the interior is just knock down and go with what you want. And these hotel rooms are not accessed from the outside. They're all accessed from a corridor from the center. This isn't a motel like the other one across the street that had doors for every instance. So you're talking about a 60,000 square foot shell that could house everything all in one building. And you're talking about a renovation fee, compared to new construction. I've been, in the industry 37 years. We're talking about 42% of the cost of a brand new building.
Okay.
Okay, so now you have a 60,000 square foot building that's a blight to the city. So you're fixing a blight, and you have all this property on both sides of the street for commercial and retail development around the new city hall.
Yeah.
And when you look at downtown, there's owners on everything, and there's not a whole bunch of, development that can go there. So you're going to miss out on a development from where City Hall sits. So I really think you need to go back and look at this hotel site closer, with knowing the knowledge now that you have that the sites next to it are for sale.
Right, right.
And so if the plant wants to, the sewage plant or the water plant or whatever, you want to expand, there's room to expand. All the sites behind it are around. So I really think you need to go back and look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve? Steve?
Put him to sleep.
You're on mute?
Yep, I was on mute. But thank you. So could you go back to just plan 1 and 2 really quick, just to see it again?
Yes. I think I can. Going backwards. Oh, here we are. This plan, site 1?
Yes. Yep. And then site 2?
2?
Okay. Yeah, I see. I agree with the analysis. I would definitely put Festival Park ahead of 1. I just don't see 1 as a realistic. I know it's the location and everything, and that's where things have been previously. I would kind of take 1 out of the mix, and I would kind of rate it like you guys did, doing 2 as the top pick, Festival Park. And then for what was said about the Days Inn, it's a blight. Like there has to be something done. I don't think the city hall is the right avenue for it, but I do think it should be something. Either it's a substation, something that needs to be done with it eventually. It's one of our main markers of when you come into the city from 27 and you just see a rundown, blighted area. So I do think that needs to happen. I just don't think this would be the great avenue for it. But I would be supportive too with Festival Park.
Okay. Thank you. Can we go back to the first slide, please?
Yes.
My question, the very first cover slide, yeah. So that was it. You can go there. Is this a civic complex or is this the city hall?
I think you have the option to either focus on the
I don't
city
want an
hall.
option. I want answers now. We've been through maybe if and I. Is this what you're looking for, a city complex or a city hall? One would have, a city complex is a lot different than a city hall.
Yeah, I think the focus is a city hall. That's the need at the moment. I think you do, again, have the option to partner with the library if the council chooses to do so. You even have the option to have satellite offices, one in the south and one in the north.
Okay, can we go to the next? So this is a city complex that you've been researching, right? Not a
Yes,
city
that
hall.
was the scope of the work, is to
Okay.
analyze it as a
That's
complex.
fine. We don't have to stretch it out. Next slide. I hope this is, you can't zero in on either one of these, can you?
I can if we go to this slide.
I want to zero in on the map, the overall map, because I need a translator, because I haven't been able to get my point across here, and it's because I'm a terrible communicator. Okay, well, let's just look at the one that's on my right, which has the red line. And I want you to stop thinking about, all of us, about Taj Mahal. We saw that, that beautiful, that looked like Taj Mahal to me, a $45 million Taj Mahal. And start thinking about customer service, resident service. And I know we're talking about way up here is all yellow coming to the future. But right now, if you're in Trilogy or a highly populated area all along Wilson Lake Parkway, in order to get to downtown 1 or 2, you have to come down Cherry Lake and down 19. If you're on Wilson Lake Parkway, you could go right to 27. And as you go through this whole thing, whether you're in Villa City, which has a lot of current units right now, not going to be built out in the future, and all along that corridor, that if you take Bible Camp Road as the cutoff and look at all these people can get to by Villa City, by O'Brien, by Wilson Lake Parkway, by 19, all these people can go down these 4 different ways to get to 27. If you don't do it, they all got to come into 19 and come down, or Villa City Road and come down. So the traffic alone, if we put 8,500 more houses, if it's really 50,000, that's 8,500 houses more out there. And add that on to the current population that already exists from Trilogy all the way across and to, Lafayette or Livingston or whatever, all the way over to Villa City. Our current population is straddled to come down Bible Camp Road and take a right, to come down Villa City, to come down those areas to get back to downtown. Then let's go to the next one that shows the bypass. The bypass is not a traffic mitigator. We still have 4 lanes coming into the city, 4 lanes going out, 4 lanes dumping into the bypass with 3 traffic lights and going out. So the traffic isn't going to change from what it is now. We won't have the traffic lights so close together and we won't have trucks turning, but they'll still be turning onto a 2-lane 19. And sure, people may decide to split off, but when they get through downtown, they've got to wait to get back on 4 lanes going out of the city either way. So this isn't going to get any better when we get 4 lanes on 19. That might mitigate it some, but that's 2032 or beyond. So I look at it from a guest service standpoint. We're going to have all the building up north. We're going to have all the traffic, the commercial and everything up there. And if it's just a city hall, where we have to service our customers, that's the best place, somewhere along there. If you're telling me we want to do a complex where we can have weddings and we can do like we went and saw in Lake Mary, this is a beautiful place because it looks out on the lake, and I think it can return like they paid for their own thing. If that's what we want, that's a different standpoint. I cannot find anybody that has City Hall and a party venue together. It just doesn't work out. So you got to be one thing and one thing to everybody. If we were to have a library, I agree, Festival Park, because we've got schools all around here, right, within walking distance of that library. I believe that, but I don't think the traffic to the library is going to be the same as it would be to a city hall to pay their bills and to do their monthly item issues. Next, I would like to go to the current number 2. Current number 2 has how many parking spaces we're saying that we're going to use the number 77 there. There's supposed to be the park and ride area as parking spaces.
Correct.
How many parking spaces are there?
77 plus the others. It's written up there. I can't see it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
77.
I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire. 70 to 100. How many employees are going to be at City Hall? How many employees do we have now?
We have 181,
Okay, so
but half of those roughly are public safety, of course. Some of them are
okay, well,
public
let's
works
say
also.
80 then. 80 takes up more than this and this. So where do the guests park? Or the guests, you're going back to my old stomping ground. Where do the residents park? If you ask me to walk from Broad Street or from right here down to Festival Park to pay my water bill in July, I would tell you, you guys are crazy.
But you have the choice.
What's my choice?
You can drive there and park.
In park where?
77 spaces,
No.
21.
I have employees in there.
Yeah,
I
but
have
there's-
80-something employees in that building.
There's 407 spaces within one block.
Within one block? Or
400
this circle?
That circle,
Or
yeah.
that circle, that circle comes all the way down to here, doesn't it? I mean, just
It's
right there.
one block to the east, one block to the west, 2 short blocks to the
This is
south.
Main, right here on the bottom is, I'm sorry to disagree with you, but that's Puryear Building right there on Main in the corner, and it goes right through the parking lot right out here. So it's not one block, and it's not a straight block. Last time at the meeting, I was told, well, you know, Walmart has 600 feet, but, you know, Walmart has 600 feet going perpendicular or parallel, but I got a straight shot into the store. I don't have to go. Now, it might be good for commercial to everybody zigzag through and walk by the ice cream shop and everything else, but I don't think we're taking the guest service into consideration on that. 45,000, yes?
On the parking, because I agree with you, that's extremely critical, and I'm wondering, Jeffrey, if you could go to the next slide just to depict, I think what is shown on this is just surrounding adjacent parking ability. I would highly recommend, say if this site was used, that you add parking in tandem with the structure to have parking and closer access to the building. Specifically for customers, we could then, you know, have priority parking and then move employee parking farther out. But I would highly recommend including parking in tandem with the structure for sure.
I love that, but we paid for a document that tells us which way we want to go, and all I'm hearing is maybes and what ifs, and I can't take parking spaces as a what if, especially if I put a tax collector and a library and everything there together and need parking spaces. I think we need to have solid information in order to move forward. 45,000 square feet, 81 employees. How does that work out?
You're looking at roughly 5,000 square feet per person, and I would disagree with the first proposal in terms of square footage. I would highly recommend that we as a council, once we determine a site, look at value engineering to have a smaller amount of square foot per employee. I don't think that's necessarily needed.
We're picking a site based on stars, and all I'm seeing is maybes and what ifs. This is 42,000 square feet for 81 employees. That's way, well, I won't say because I don't know how you have that divided up. Bypass, 10-minute walk. Again, I go back to if I've got to walk 10 minutes to get to pay my water bill that I'm already pissed off about, excuse me, but I'm already mad about the water bill, then I don't think that's a good issue. Shoehorn into a present unit. Not pitching one unit or another, but if you can knock out all the walls, fine, you know.
I'm not sure you can.
Huh?
I'm not sure you can do that.
I know, and that's
Structural walls.
that is my problem. And we could get blueprints, right? You can get the blueprints for the Days Inn and find out how big is the restaurant that's there. Could it be, I mean, this whole thing about not having enough room in the main building. We need to have that. I'd like to hear that. I'd like to, this is all supposition. Well, maybe I drove around it, you know? If somebody could just go and put a tire iron to the door, through the wall, and see if like the other one's down the street that goes through, or this one, I did the same thing you did. I walked around the whole thing, but that's been a year ago when we first started talking this. $45 million, was that what the city hall? Not the city complex, not the library, not everything
I don't
else?
think it's $1,000 a foot. I think it's $500 a foot.
So it's 22 million
That's what I said.
for just the city hall?
City Hall.
Okay.
That's what I said.
And is it going to look like what we have here?
That's conservative.
Is that what we're asking them to do? Can you go to the picture
Of the City
of the
Hall?
city hall? You have, right, there we go. Is that,
That's a concept drawing that was drawn as part of the strategic plan several years ago. Again, once we figure out a location, next step would be designing an actual structure, square footage, parking,
And
site-specific
would it be
information.
possible to use lower cost type construction, like, just for an example, because everybody's familiar what GP construction does, and make, a $2 million building that serves our needs for now in case we need to grow somewhere else, that maybe we could actually pay for by selling another lot downtown or something.
That's such a astute, because we just went through that with neighborhood, right? Faith Neighborhood, they had a $16 million building, and they went to a different building, and it's 6.
That's where
So
I got the
I could
idea from, was my
absolutely-
conversation with Patricia.
You could absolutely grow this incrementally. You do not need, serve your needs for a time period and then add on to it. That's very possible. That's not the criteria that I received. I received a full packet with 57,000 square feet of space.
I'm just trying to make a
Yeah, I'm
point,
just saying.
because
Yeah.
I'm, in the back of my mind, I might as well bring it up now. How are we going to finance $22 million?
I don't know. At this point, when we look at the amount of loans that we've added up, I wouldn't never come here to recommend council goes beyond that 15% debt service to income ratio. I think we need to look at, as Councilwoman Carroll pointed out, value engineering and getting creatively, looking at incremental. The part where, City Hall, in terms of looking at a site that the city already owns, that would be a huge cost. That would be a time saver. And then there's also potential grants if you paired it with parking and stormwater benefits for the local businesses. I think there's some grant opportunities within the CRA that might help drive that cost down. I also think instead of building a 40,000 square foot building, 3-story all at one time to keep up with growth, I think building in increments would help us reduce their necessity to take out loans.
I think that those questions have to be answered before we determine what kind of building we're going to have and where it's going to be. I really think we're putting the windows into the house before we have the foundation. Mm-hmm. It's all supposition here. And I hear these numbers, but I just had the honor of going and walking through the new Maitland Library. The new Maitland Library is over 15,000 square feet and costs $15 million. It's a beautiful facility, just opened up. They just paid for it. It was budgeted at 10, came in at 15, but it's a beautiful facility. I hear these numbers, and I'm saying, I've heard them before, and you've heard them before, where it cost us this much to drill a well, it cost the city next door that much, it costs this much, and I'm just wondering where all this is coming from. I appreciate all the hard work you've done, but I think we have a lot of stuff that we had last time here with 1, 2, and 3. I would have expected more on 4, 5, and 6 on just what does it mean. And walkable is walkable. Somebody's going to have to drive down here to be walkable. Somebody's got to drive out there to be walkable. My issue is, let's plan it from the customer or the resident experience out, instead of the Taj Mahal look in, and just put this together in a different format. What are our needs? What are our exact needs? 8,500 more homes, that's double the size that we are right now. What do we need to accommodate in that time? Can it be expandable? Yes. Those are the discussions we need to have before we hand it off to somebody and say, go find us a site, because we can't do a bond. The former city manager and I were hot on a bond. If you got 8,500 homes, you've got on $22 million. If I charged 8,500 homes right now $100 bond a year, that doesn't come close. If I charge them $1,000 a year, you know what I'm saying? It ain't going to work. It isn't going to work. So we've got to determine, hey, this is what we've got to work with. Now, do we build something? Do we go lease something? What is the next step? Because we've got to be realistic on where we are on our debt and what we can actually do. To me, right now, I know you were under pressure because of the bypass going in for our Parks and Rec. I would sell all the living room furniture downstairs at the building over here and put cubicles over there. I mean, I never see anybody sitting in those couches and sitting at the coffee tables and
Mr. Mayor,
stuff.
we're actually having those conversations
Yeah.
because we know best case scenario, we wouldn't have, even if we agreed today, we likely wouldn't have a new city hall constructed today.
Yeah.
So taking stock of our existing facilities, the annex city hall, we're losing the house on Main, but public safety, we're doing an analysis to better use those facilities to see how many more bodies we could actually still fit between now and whenever we do build a new building. But I do agree with you in terms of taking a step back and doing a budgeting analysis and pulling together some, I would say, some conceptual figures and various sources to get an idea of how affordably could we build a new city hall, rather than saying what's the most we could build.
Exactly. And so we get it right. And I do appreciate all the work. I absolutely do. I'm sorry we didn't have our information together for you to where we could really move forward on things, but we can't wait too long. We need
But
you to
Mayor,
look-
can't,
Oh,
and I'm
sorry.
about to run into this graduation, but I do think from the discussion, there's at least a first choice and then possibly a second choice. So I do think it's wise if we were to go around and say, this is my top, just so that we can eliminate 3 of them that we're just never going to select. Like there are 3 of those that nobody said anything positive about. So I think that might be wise to at least cut down the list.
Yeah, but I think I agree with you, Steve, but I think this is a meeting we have to have that's going to take a while to sort through that. I think that we've got to really have the concrete information on what can you do here, what can you do there, what's our bottom line, what's the timeline, what can we do, you know? I look at, I was told at the last meeting that the city hall has to be downtown because all city halls are downtown. That Orlando's isn't downtown in a historic district. Lake Mary's not in a historic district. You can look it up how many aren't. Sanford had to move out of the historic district, you know, because they couldn't expand, and that's the problem with being confined by the land mass. You're not going to be able to expand across the new bypass or in different directions. So I think those, I don't want to say anything negative about any of them, because I'm sure all of them have a positive thing, but I think we need to put a pencil to something besides, I think, and I know, we have to say, I know, that this can't accommodate it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just would add that there are a lot of factors that are going to come into play throughout time, and you need to be a little nimble and be able to take advantage of those conditions when they occur. Because if you wait 5 more years, that $500 could be $1,000, as you've identified.
I agree with that.
I liked your idea that satellite conditions might be obvious. If you put it all in one place, then at least half your population is going to have to drive the entire distance, no matter which side you choose.
Yeah, but some can get there quicker, you know, by going down 4 rather than 2 lanes. So I
Two-way
don't want to
street.
argue that out right now or debate that out right now. I just think that we need to be very careful on where we put this. I'm all for having a library down here, and if in actuality the library wants to give us the money to put the library over there, as you just said, partnering, I don't know why we would wait, you know, to get something like that going. That's different from City Hall. That's different from City Hall. And
Thank you very much.
And just to rest your mind at ease, when I've heard that comment about it's going to cost more, it's going to cost more.
Over time.
But you know what happens? The property values, if you look at how much taxes have increased on property values over the same amount of time to construction, it parallels. So it's 500 today.
That's right.
And 1,000 next, it's 500 today and 1,000 next on that side too.
I agree. You can't
Mr.
isolate
Mayor,
it to one thing.
Just for next steps, would it be possible to get some recommended next steps from the council in terms of consensus on how we would like to move the needle going forward?
Get the answers. Take that tape and everything, maybe, everything, I think, prove it. That's what we pay a consultant for. You know, is this building structurally okay? Can stuff fit into it? Have we talked to Bright Hill to say, what would that cost? Where would it be? Did we talk to them, the Eisenhower Group, and say, this is how many square feet we want, what is it going to cost? I'm concerned about that because right now, you and I have heard that offices are $1,000 each to lease a month, a month. And so, yeah, our timeline's ticking. Absolutely, our timeline's ticking. Because when you take 81 offices and multiply it by 1,000, and that's the low end, right? That's the low end right now here in Groveland. We need to make some decisions. So let's get to the facts. Let's get the blueprints. Let's get the Bright Hill. You took one off the board right off the bat. We spent a lot of time on Fulmer. That's gone, you know? So we don't even have to look at that. But let's get it down. What is it going to look like? How many people, what's the real square footage need to be? You've said, well, let's do something and expand it. Well, let's tell us what the footprint is. You don't understand? And then we can make decisions. Yeah, this is a place to do it. We'll start out with this and it can expand to that. Those are the decisions that's just me talking. I'd open it up to the rest of the group.
I mean, my concern remains the same as how we would pay for it. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas, and I could see how multiple sites could work depending on what we decide to go with. But the bottom line is we need to make sure that we're paying for it in a responsible way and that we're not going to build something that we can't afford.
Bob.
Mayor.
You have to come to the podium if you're going to speak.
So casually. My apologies. Bob Proper, 395 Catherine Lane. I would not remove the Carol Fulmer property. I am helping them to buy. We're closing in 2 weeks. I've been tasked by the owner to renovate the entire facility. It's going to be leased out. I thought he was going to use it himself. He's not. So we're in process of doing that. I've been evaluating the floor plans. I've got copies of all that and trying to understand my client's needs with what his intentions are and what we're talking about. I've also got 13 acres of undeveloped land that can be in play. Again, I can't speak for the owner on end decisions. I'm just suggesting that we don't necessarily need to take that off the table. And I have an existing structure. The main Carol Fulmer headquarters, we're having we're still analyzing how that's going to be used. And that's a fully operational, functional facility that needs a little bit of cleaning up, and we're going to be using it. So that's all. I just want to say, don't eliminate it.
Wait a minute, Mr. Realtor. Wait a minute.
No, okay.
What's the cost? What is it going for?
How much money you got? No, I'm kidding.
We have no money.
I mean, there's markets, right? I mean, that's all determined. I did just get the appraisal in on the property. I don't think I can really reveal that yet. The contract, it'll be known. We're buying it for $15 million, the entire 35 acres with 46,000 square feet of buildings, broken up over 6 different buildings on there. The main headquarters is, I think, 14,000 square feet. And that's already set up for conference rooms and offices and et cetera, et cetera. So all I'm suggesting or requesting is, hey, let's not eliminate anything. I still think we need to understand our needs. I'm 100% on that. I like metal buildings personally, and you can make them look really nice, and they're very cost effective. I'm not pushing any particular place. I'm just saying, let's not eliminate anything at this point. That's it.
Do you have a timeline on that?
We close in 2 weeks.
Well, I can't. Can we vote on 15 million for 2 weeks from now? We've been through that before, right?
So.
2 weeks, I need 750 grand in 2 weeks.
No, I have internal goals for, I've got plans in place. We're going to start renovations immediately. It just needs to be cleaned up, mostly. The structurally is very sound. I just got the inspection reports back. Everything looks good. Again, all I wanted to request is that, hey, in the best interest of the city, not Bob Proper, not my client, but in the best interest of the city, let's not eliminate anything yet until we know all the bits and pieces, starting with what are our needs, right?
Tim, Mr. City Manager, maybe you two need to get together, because maybe it isn't us buying that, but leasing it. If they're going to redo the property and find out what, if it's got 40-something thousand square feet, and you can access your egress right off of 19, we don't have to go down. We can put a.
And we've got
tear
3.5
that fence
acres
down.
on the corner
Yeah.
that, you know.
Just something to consider, but.
Always happy to
I mean, if we
speak
don't
with
have to
Mr.
spend
Stroper.
22 million, and we can just lease it for now.
Mayor,
Yes?
I love the discussion. The graduation ceremony just started, so I'm going to sign off, okay?
He had to
His
sign off.
graduation
sign off 'cause
ceremony
it's
is about to
starting.
start, so he's got to go.
Did a graduation.
Well, congratulations on that graduation. Wear your cap and gown really well, and
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
thank you.
I'm open to discussions. I agree, we need to analyze what we
Tim,
need.
that's for you to get with.
And just want to let you know that that's not off the table.
Before the
All
city
5
manager will be
decisions.
getting with you on that. Okay?
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, now do I get a turn? Can I talk now?
For what? We're on to the next agenda item. Oh, go ahead.
I just think whoever brought up the idea of selling the furniture or whatever down in the annex and moving some offices down there and put cubicles, I think that is a thrifty idea for now. And I think it's something that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaines.
Barbara, as far as I know, that we don't have a lease past a year?
2030.
2030.
Oh,
So we still have a few years.
Oh, okay.
We lease the space for about
Sorry.
$5,000 a month, so it's an affordable option for us for the short term.
Oh, I'm good, I'm good. I said everything already. I interrupted a couple
Did you wanna
times
say
because I got
something
excited, sorry.
Yeah, I want to get a consensus from us to give direction so we don't pay for another study that doesn't answer our questions. Right?
I just wanted to get the study that we paid for.
Okay. So, but it seems the direction that the person who did the study wasn't the direction of the council. So I think the council needs to come up with a direction if we're going to continue with this person doing a new study or modifying his study, or I don't know.
I'm sorry, you know I'm a terrible communicator. I
don't think so.
And I hope I said it while everybody was here, because some people had left, is that we had 1, 2, and 3 before. We went through that, right? 1 and 2, yeah, we had down in Cortez
Before and
Corner and
5 were
stuff
new.
before. And this new study was for the other 3.
Okay.
And we got, I drove around, and
I agree.
that is not what we pay. When we pay for a consultant to come here and give us direction, it can't be maybe and if and what, There's got to be, so we need to tighten up the scope, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, show us the blueprint, show us as much on these other buildings as we saw on these buildings, And
Then there's no traffic study
Mr.
in
Mayor,
there,
just
so-
to, not to press too hard, but in terms of the scope and comfort level and what to spend on this, because the guidance before was to spend, that I had from the previous city manager, was to spend less than $10,000. Include the location analysis for the 3 additional sites. If we're going in and doing a more microscopic analysis of an existing structure and including engineers, including contractors, as you know, that might be a different story. But I just want to make sure that we get direction, and when we come back, it's living up to your expectations.
I think that's totally appropriate. I think that, did you want to say something before I say
No, no,
something?
go ahead.
I think that, I'll tell you what I think. I think we need a different view. We brought back somebody that did the first study, and we moved number 1 to number 2 and number 2 to number 1. As far as preference. Last time, this building was the number 1 suggestion, right? This time, we've moved to Festival Park. I'd like to get a different perspective, to tell you the truth, but we've already paid for this, and I'm the first to say, well, maybe you're right, did we get $10,000 worth? Tell me what we've got actionable out of here. I think there should be some stuff sewed up on this one that we just got. Some of these questions should be answered from what we did. Is $10,000 a good amount to spend on something that's going to cost us I've seen $45 to $50 million when you add everything together. I don't know if that's the right, I don't know if that's the right priority there, because we're gonna win or fail on the prep, not on the, when it happens, it happens. Right now is what's gonna tell us what's gonna happen. So yes, I think that we can't vote on price today, but I think we should put it on the agenda to say, what is that price going to be, and how are we going to go about doing it, and what's the next steps? And I think Steve was right, and maybe in that meeting too, we can say what's 1 and 2 or 3, so we're not paying them for 4, 5, and 6 if it's only these 2, but to really drill down. My problem is I don't know what's 1 or 2 or 3, because I got somebody saying there's not enough space in a building when they've got restaurants and meeting rooms already there, and that we can't fit stuff in small cubicles when it's spanned architecture, that you can pull a bulldozer right down the middle of all those. So I need us to give somebody the right amount of funding or whatever to make sure that we get what we need to at least get to 1 or 2. And I don't think this was what we asked for. This was not what we asked for. I think number 1, 2 was very well stated. Number 3, number 4, number 5, I don't think we had the same amount of information.
Mr. May, can we ask for a consensus to have the city manager come up with a scope for site 3, 4, and 5, and bring that back to us with an estimated cost and an actual scope? And the scope needs to be independent for each site, because each site is different.
I would say that, except I'm not clear on how many square feet we need. Are you?
No, not at all.
And how can you do a scope? I mean, we got some basic fundamental, that's why I say we got the windows going in and we don't have the foundation. We have to tell somebody, we're going to do 25,000 square feet right now and add on. We're going to do 50,000, we're going to do a shell on the second floor and not finish the first. We've got to say, this is what we need in order to get by in 2030. And this is what we can expand to, and this is what we can expand to if we need to. If we buy a whole building and only take the one part, that's 25,000, you're going to make incubators out of the rest of that. It can't be sitting there idle. You got to make money on that too. But we need that kind of thinking. And before we get to the scope on what we want, we've got to know what we want.
Okay,
You know?
so how about I change it and sit there and say that the city manager comes back to us and sits there and tells us what our present employee load is and what our future employee load would be for the next 10 years, and that is where we can base this square footage per each employee and go forward.
Just to also add to that offer is analyzing budget constraints, and usually when you go to buy a house, or if you're a business and you're going to buy a facility, you want to understand an idea of how much can you pay for before you start picking something out.
I think we got the windows, that's the wall. The foundation is, no matter where we go, lease, option, or whatever, we're going to need to know how many employees, we're going to need to know how many square feet before we know anything else, because that's going to be the shell that then we go and add into. So I think that's you can tell he's got an engineer. He started at the foundation. We need to know the occupancy, what it's going to be used for. I feel bad because I don't think we gave good direction, and I knew it as soon as the first slide came up and it said civic complex, because that's different. 45,000. That means 45,000 square feet. You know, not a city hall.
So we know what
We have
we think.
consensus to narrow it down just to a city hall building.
Yeah, we can look at just a city hall building, and, I mean, if we want to talk about a library separate, because I would love to have a new library, and I think that's a great goal, but I don't think it necessarily has to be with the city hall. So I think.
Help me out, because
yeah.
you've got the best memory.
Yep.
Because I want to bring that back up. I heard today that the county will do that. The county would do that, you know, because it's a county facility, and
So
I
the-
wrote down the
The
notes. on it.
county will help do, if we don't push, then the county's not doing it. Let's not be delusional.
can
We
we,
got to
uh,
push, put a little pressure on. We got to be like, hey, we have this land and we would like for you to use it to put the library on, and that would motivate them.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and
I
we've
mean,
got
we
the
just got to
land.
give them the little push.
And that's why I like, we got the land over here, buy a little
And
parking.
we have a couple land
We don't have to
options.
wait right
Yeah.
now. If that's a situation, and that's a benefit to our
That's a huge
constituents.
benefit
We don't
to
have to wait.
all our
If the
school
county's
kids
going to do it, we
and all
got
our
the
adults
land.
even.
There's parking going over there. It's something that we can move in a separate path on and get stuff done for our constituents, different from the city hall, right? So you take that lead, okay?
Ask
Library,
Barbara.
done.
Ask Barbara what she wants.
Barbara, what do you think, Barbara?
I think that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And the suggestions of Site 3, 4, and 5, I think that the scope of the original one needs to be looked at and see what is missing. I am opposed to just doing another scope without a comparison, an analysis, or whatever. That's what I mean by if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And right now, is there anybody up here that has a clue of what the scope was, what it said, and then how we are going to sanitize what we need? So I think the two need to be looked at together.
Right now, the item on the table is to have the city manager give us a scope based on present city employees and how many employees we're going to have in 10 years, and give us the size of buildings. The scope has nothing to do with any of the presentation that they just gave us. It only has to do with the number of employees and the size of the increased employees and what space we actually need.
Well, I respectfully disagree with you, Mike. I think, let me just ask this, was the scope, when it was first initiated, was the scope only employees? We have to compare apples to apples and not apples to cantaloupes. So if that original scope was only the employees or number of employees and the square footage, then go for it, okay? But if it was something altogether different, which it sounds like to me that it was different, then you have to be comparable in the scope.
Okay, and maybe I can clear up a little confusion and just shake your head no if this isn't correct. Everything up to this date is something that was asked of this gentleman from a former council to make sure that we could just put something in downtown. It wasn't outside of the downtown historic corridor. Is that correct?
Let me speak to that.
Okay.
Please, Mr. Mayor. Previously, in multiple years, multiple plans, new City Hall was always imagined in the downtown CRA area for multiple reasons. The version of the analysis before this was which of the downtown properties that the city owned would make the most sense for a new City Hall. That's where that analysis came in. Back in December, with this existing council, it was also brought up of looking at non-downtown properties. The consensus from the council that day was to look at the top 2 sites for downtown, but include 3 new sites. Those sites were the Carol Fulmer site, the Days End site, and then a potential site in Bright Hill. We worked with the Bright Hill group, Eisenhower group, to pinpoint where exactly they would donate land to the city for a new city hall. That's why that 5th location was included. It was just location analysis. What would make the most sense? We used all the same criteria that was included in study 1, and we did study 2 with those 3 new sites.
So where we went wrong without a scope is that somehow 45,000 square feet got in there without a scope, right? Library got in there without a scope. All this stuff was added on that wasn't in the original scope, right? It was just find the location.
No, it was included in the original scope, and that came out of a spatial needs analysis from another consultant before Mr. Mallon with the previous council.
It'd be nice to see that spatial analysis to find out how many employees I'm just having a problem with 45,000 square feet, but that's okay. We don't have to beat this horse anymore. I think you have a consensus that we need to get the basic fundamentals to move forward. Is that your consensus?
Right, yeah, and based on what Barbara said, it is, let them develop a scope based on what we just talked about, and then modify it after we see it. Do you have a clear?
We're going to come back with a very basic needs assessment done internally with our staff in terms of how much square footage we need to accommodate the public and staff, and parking, acreage, et cetera. Then we'll also come back with some ideas in terms of what's the lowest amount that might cost and how we might be able to pay for that without borrowing money.
Okay, add one more thing into, you have to throw the leasing in there too, if you could. Because if the leasing is far cheaper than the building, then in our present economical, condition, we should look at leasing.
We could explore a lease option.
Okay.
Will you be able to show the scope?
Of course, happy to do that. Happy to come back to a council meeting, provide you our scope before we actually do the work, just so to make sure that we're all walking together.
No, I mean the original scope, like, is it possible to have, I'm being simplistic here, to have a chart? Here's what it was in the original. You see, it wasn't just the number of employees and square footage. This is what we asked for in the original. How to make it better would be the second part of it. Here's what we plan to add.
Would be happy to share with council the previous scopes for each of the 3 studies that we've done so far, along with each of the study to accompany it.
Okay.
So you have a whole track record of work that we've done in the last few years on this item.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to speak in our individual briefings too and go over those in detail with each of you.
Consensus.
Okay, so we're looking to get a consensus from the council on developing a scope, comparing the last scope to a new scope, and including square footage of what we actually need and what we will need in a relative near future, plus what it would cost to build it versus rent it or lease it. And that would come back to the council before anything went forward.
I consent.
Thank you.
We got consent on that. Okay, moving on. Tim, I'd like to save agenda structure for a later, for another workshop, because we've got an opening of at the rate we're going, we're going to run into the time for the new.
He just doesn't want to hear me talk.
Ben was so excited, he picked up the clicker, he was ready to.
He has a fancy slideshow for sure. for
Let's
the
go
next
to
meeting.
discussion of city insurance risk, overview of, because we had people come just for this, we want to hear them.
We did. We have Michelle that's going to give a short introduction to our insurance group, and John and Josh are here in attendance to present as well.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. As Tim and I have recently both stepped into the roles that we have, we wanted to dig into what our insurance policies look like and make sure that as a city, as we continue to grow, that we are completely covered, we're not left wide open. I mean, like today, we have the grand opening in South Lake Regional Park, making sure everything's in line to protect the city, the residents, staff. And so we have asked our friends at PMR to come, and so I'm going to introduce them, and they're going to go through what we have. So we have John Rivera and Josh Holland that are going to come up and give a presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. It's hard to believe it's afternoon already, but good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, esteemed council members. As Michelle mentioned, I'm Josh Holland. With me is my colleague, John Rivera. We work with World Risk Management, who is the exclusive broker and administrator for Public Risk Management of Florida, which is the insurance company for the city of Groveland.
Can you state that address for the record?
Oh, I don't live in Groveland. My home address?
Or your business address? Or your
Yeah, 14519 Golden Harbor Lane, Winter Garden, Florida.
13461 Lagerstrom Way, Claremont, Florida.
I'd like to start off by thanking council, city staff for the continued partnership with respect to the city's property and casualty needs. Obviously, staff invited us here today to kind of give you guys an overview of what we do, how it works. So as we go through this proposal, we're kind of just going to give you, if you will, a 1,000-foot view on the city's insurance program, the different services that we offer. We can go through a state of the market really quickly and some of the hot topics that are present and impacting municipalities such as yourself today. To start off by identifying, so as I mentioned before, we're World Risk Management. We are a broker agency. We represent Public Risk Management of Florida. Public Risk Management of Florida, also known as PRM, is the insuring company for the city of Groveland. It is a self-insurance risk pool dedicated to serving public municipalities, counties, towns, and special districts throughout the state of Florida. Davies Claims North America is the third-party administrator. They are the folks that handle all of the claims that would be reported by an entity such as yourself. So they would handle the workers' comp claims, liability claims, property claims. McLaren's is another component of our program. They are a CAT property adjusting team. They mainly handle the hurricane-type claims that happen because they represent the markets directly. And I should add, as we go through this presentation and this discussion, if you have any questions at all, please stop us and let us know. We're absolutely open to making this more conversational. I know that you guys are probably pressed on time based off the way this meeting has gone thus far, but we're happy to address any questions at that moment. John, you want to give the history?
Yeah. Absolutely. So PRM was formed in 1987 as a regional pool. They were actually
Please speak into the mic so we have it on the...
Sorry about that. PRM was formed as a regional pool out of Southwest Florida for some local entities who were looking to, group purchase their insurance versus the standard market, standard insurance companies that were in play at that time. It started with 8 members. Then today it's about 82 members. It's very much a member-driven program, meaning that it's controlled by board of directors, just like how the city is and what you are to the city. That board of directors is comprised of, city managers, HR directors, finance directors, risk managers, some commissioners who all have a voice and a vote kind of in how the program is run. We as the brokers answer to the board of directors, to the executive director, which is the members, right? So just how y'all answer to the citizens, we answer to the members of our program, and we really encourage those members to drive conversation. We encourage them to be active at board meetings and kind of voice their opinions, good or bad, on things that they want to see different from the program. So, and a couple of the goals, again, some of the high-level obvious ones, coverage, expanding coverage, consistency of coverage to members. What I mean by that is being able to offer comprehensive coverage year in and year out without any major restrictions or changes that would negatively impact an entity. Consistency and cost. Obviously, budgets are a big part of what you do, and you get started on that process many months in advance. Giving you budgetable numbers that you know ahead of time what's coming, good or bad, no surprises, so that you can, again, with your finance folks, budget appropriately on that side. So, go ahead. So we're going to go over next just through the different coverages that the city currently purchases. So one of them obviously is property coverage. You guys have just had a lengthy discussion on the potential build out of some new, or construction rather, of some new buildings. All of that, obviously, there is a cost to that, right? The cost to insure. The more you have to insure, the more the cost goes up. But this is just a very high-level overview of what's currently insured for the city. So you have approximately $81.6 million in building values, $3.6 million in content values, and you can see down the list exactly, all of the different things that PRM insures for you guys. The total insurable values for the city is $95.5 million. To put things in perspective, when the city first joined PRM back on October 1st, 2023, that total insurable value number was $74 million and change. So, you guys as a city obviously are continuing to grow your population, the employees that you guys are adding, payroll, your total insurable value is also known as TIV. That has gone up. All of that factors into your overall reinsurance costs.
Again, these are just some more of the PRM coverages. Property we already went through, which was $95.5 million. Auto liability, you guys currently have a limit of $2 million per occurrence. General liability, $2 million per occurrence. Public officials and errors of omissions, and that's to protect you guys for any potential wrongful acts. It also includes employment practices liability for any employees that bring suit against the city. That is going to be $2 million per claim, and there's a $6 million annual aggregate. Crime is at $500,000. Equipment breakdown, which would be for like generators, HVACs, refrigeration units, that's going to be at $50 million. Workers' comp is obviously statutory limits, and employer's liability would be $2 million. So the city currently doesn't take any deductibles on any major deductibles, I should say, on any one line of coverage. There are some nominal deductibles associated with property, crime, and equipment breakdown. Again, those are pretty standard for the course, if you will. But as we get into the next part of our discussion, we'll talk about some opportunities that the city can take in terms of retaining maybe some of that risk on their own to kind of help alleviate some of the rising insurance costs and make you guys less reliant on insurance overall as a city.
Got it. Okay. Well, Josh touched on some of this already. The city joined PRM back in October of 2023, so you've been a member now. This October will be 3 years. In that time, your payroll, all right, so employee payroll, as well as total insurable values have each gone up a little over 14%. Nothing bad, right? Just a measure of growth, so to speak, with a few factors. As you can see, your premium has gone up about 11% over that time. This is a blend right across all lines of coverage, such as property, liability, auto, workers' compensation. But our goal, again, is to give stable, predictable cost for the city and for our members. We typically tell folks that as you grow and expand, there's a cost associated, right, with, it's just like if you buy another vehicle personally. If you own 2 vehicles and you buy 3, you wouldn't expect Geico to insure that 3rd vehicle for free, but you would expect them to at least try to have a similar rate for that 3rd vehicle that maybe they're extending to the first 2. So that's where we try to step in and control. So,
and just add a little color here. So I think the important takeaway from this slide is that if you look at your property total insurable values and your payroll, they each went up, over 14. Payroll was up almost 14.5% since you guys joined PRM. But when you look at the premium increase, since you guys joined, it's just under 11%, as John mentioned. So what that suggests, or what that implies to you, is that you've actually seen a rate reduction. So the rate of insurance on one or more lines of coverages is actually reduced since the time you guys joined PRM. Because if you had the same rate of insurance, then your premium would have went up at a corresponding fashion. And so the first year that you guys joined the program, you guys were actually in a rate lock, didn't get a rate increase, and any premium changes that were passed along was simply for exposure changes. So if your payroll went up, you took your rate of insurance, we multiplied it by the increase in payroll, and that was your premium. And then same thing for your total insurable value. So a lot of good things going on in the property market this year that's going to really benefit the city as well come renewal time. But again, just a testament to the way that we try to operate, which is ultimately trying to provide you guys financial stability, budgetable numbers year in and year out, and remove the volatility that exists within the standard insurance market to give you guys a better go at trying to manage your budget to provide all the services that you do for the community. So what are the benefits of PRM and why are you guys with us? Well, we have the broadest property coverage form in the state of Florida, bar none. And I know that's a bold statement to make, but objectively, we can do a comparison with any other program in the state and show how our property coverage is objectively better than theirs. We pride ourselves in superior claims handling, superior loss control. PRM itself has a staff of about 13 folks now. They have 3 loss control risk consultants that go around the state dealing with their membership and looking for ways to mitigate risk, provide risk management guidance to cities. Oftentimes, cities don't have dedicated risk personnel. You have a finance director or HR director that's doubling as a risk manager. And so our goal is obviously to go out and help educate some of those members and provide guidance and training, if you will, in terms of how to view risk, how to manage risk, and ultimately, like I said, how to bring your cost of risk and insurance down. The biggest benefit to PRM, as John alluded to earlier, is the fact that when you join PRM, you do get a seat on the board of directors, and that allows you one vote per member. And that's important because you as a member are able to go to our quarterly board meetings, engage with not only us, the broker, but with PRM directly in front of the rest of the membership and actually shape policy. So we have, members driving conversation in terms of what coverage should look like, how much surplus we should use to reduce insurance costs, et cetera. And so at that time during our board meetings, we also give state of the market updates. And it's important because, there's a lot going on in the reinsurance and excess insurance world. And ultimately, that's what impacts the individual renewals that we give to our members. So we kind of give a broad overview, if you will, on what's going on in the insurance market, how it's going to impact PRM as a program, and then ultimately how that trickles down to you as the individual member that's insured by PRM. So in addition to that, PRM offers employment practices hotline, a law enforcement hotline, and obviously we consider ourselves, white glove service. So if you guys ever have a need, just call us. We'll get back to you same day or within 24 hours at the latest. And John just mentioned to me that I forgot to, I was remiss to not mention the fact that we do property appraisals. So every new member that comes into PRM, we do a ground-up property appraisal at no additional cost to you guys. And what that means is that we go around and we inspect all of the buildings. Well, we don't do it. We have a third-party company that does it, HCA Assets. But they go around, they inspect all your buildings, they pull the blueprints, they walk the buildings with your staff, and then they determine what the total or what the cost to construct that building brand new would be today. And then in between years, we do that every 5 years. In between years, we trend for inflationary factors. And that's to make sure that we're providing some comfort to the reinsurance property market, right? That provides reinsurance coverage for us, and that they have a comfort level with what they're insuring, and that helps us get the best terms and conditions and the best possible rate for you guys.
How often do you do that?
The appraisals are done for every new member when joining PRM, the year they join PRM, and then every 5 years after. So about 25% of our membership gets appraised every single year.
And do you appraise the property as well as we have vacant property acreage? Do you appraise that as well?
No, so we don't appraise vacant land. Any vacant land that's owned by the city is automatically included as part of the schedule for liability purposes, but you can't insure vacant land.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go into some state of the market. Josh alluded to property and where that is right now for folks. Essentially, property costs really come down to capacity. With many other items that you can purchase out in the marketplace, those are tangible and intangible. Competition, access really drives price, right? So right now we're in a market where there is a plethora of carriers who are interested, who want to write property insurance. As again, with any item, that's going to drive down the cost. Not only is it driving down costs, it's driving down what carriers are willing to offer from terms and conditions, limits, deductibles, things of that nature that are available in the marketplace. What we have up here is a state of the market property map for the United States. We pull this every year from the National Weather Service, the NOAA. Actually, and it essentially shows single billion-dollar loss events that have occurred across the United States. Each one of those circles represents one. What you can see for 2025, there's about 14 separate events. On that side, relatively low compared to prior years. Obviously, we didn't have any hurricanes that made any significant impact in the mainland U.S., so that definitely helps improve the performance there. What is of note, and this historically is applied more to the Midwest, to the Tornado Alley area, there's this term that we call severe convective storm. So it's essentially any weather-related loss. It's not from a hurricane, so it could be tornadoes, it could be hail, it could be a wide array of things. We're seeing a huge increase in severe convective storm across the United States, and loss that's driven by that. Versus a hurricane. With a hurricane, it's a little bit more predictable. It typically impacts a specific region. The severe convective storm is very hard to predict. It shows up anywhere. I remember that the city got impacted, 4 years ago maybe, from a bunch of hail and loss that occurred from severe convective storm. So,
yeah, and just something to point out. when it comes to, or rather, let me take a step back, because I know I've used some terms that maybe you're not familiar with. So you heard me say reinsurance. If you're not familiar with that term, reinsurance is nothing but insurance for an insurance company, right? So these property markets that John was referring to, they're our version of reinsurance, and then they go out and they purchase reinsurance as well, right, to cover those catastrophic losses. So every program tries to retain a certain amount of losses, and then they reinsure the rest out to, or they cede the rest of that exposure out to a reinsurer. And so in years past, going back to 2023, the market had really hardened. It was really, really difficult to go out and get reinsurance because we had so many losses, rates were really low, and the market simply said, we're not making any money, we're bleeding money every year, what do we do? So they basically did a 180 and just said, we're going to charge as much as possible. So we had that really difficult year in 23, the year that you guys joined. And then since then, we've had a couple hurricanes, but because of the changes in the reinsurance structure, meaning how much money those carriers were retaining and how much they were ceding off to the reinsurers that they were paying, they've started to become profitable. And so what we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, is the property market going back the other way, where now it's starting to go down. But what I want to caution is that even though the rates are on a steep decline right now, when you look at the global insured losses, which is about $127 billion, about $100 billion of that or so was in the United States, $61 billion due to severe convective storms, that all leads to a lot of losses that have been consistent over the last 10 years. And so if we're now in an environment where the rates have steeply declined, but the losses have kept consistent. So if we get hit with a really bad hurricane, it's only a matter of time before the property market flips again and the reinsurance costs start to rise, right? But as with any time like this in the insurance market, when you're on a decline, we want to take advantage of it and pass those savings along to our members. This slide is really just talking about, the available capacity, which is the amount of insurers that are available out there to provide limit to you. It's basically a lot of new players have entered the game. They're all wanting to get in after that 2023 year when rates skyrocketed. Everybody started joining the property market as an investment tool, right, to try to make some money, and that has continued. And all of that competition is a good thing for insurers because what it's doing is it's driving the price down. You want to take this one, Joe?
State of the market on automobile, as you can imagine, in Florida drives, I think the number's about 60% of all automobile litigation across the United States comes out of our lovely state of Florida. Auto rates on the personal and commercial side, again, as I'm sure you've experienced, are quite substantially increasing, even for those of you who have not had claims. I know it doesn't make sense. You can thank my millennial generation for distracted driving. That is now a contributor in 70% of all automobile claims across the United States. Cell phones being the biggest culprit, eating, and then makeup application, interestingly enough. So as you can imagine, not only do you have an influx of activity, vehicles are much more expensive to replace now, right? Vehicles have so many more sensors in the mirrors and the bumpers. So what used to be a $2,000 bumper is now $8,000, and what used to be a $250 mirror is now a $2,000 mirror.
Can I just interrupt just a second, and I apologize?
Go ahead.
Because we're short of time. We're not bidding on insurance here or anything like that. What we really wanted out of this, I think the city manager will back me up, is to let us know what insurance these members of the council have on them, what is covered and what isn't covered. I think that's a very important discussion to have. We love your insurance, okay? I mean, we're dealing with you all the time, unfortunately, but...
Less is more sometimes, so we weren't sure, we knew that you wanted some guidance, but we figured we'd go to the state of the market, but we can skip right through that and just kind of talk about the public officials' liability coverage, if you will. So that covers any wrongful act. You guys make a decision up here, that ultimately ends up, in a bad way, and somebody in the community decides to file suit against the city, that is something that would be covered. Obviously, things that wouldn't be covered is going to be any criminal act, right? So, I'm trying to, off the top of my head, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, criminal acts, you think that they would be so easy? Huh?
Embezzlement.
Yes, yes. Any criminal act wouldn't be covered, but, as long as you get up here and you're making decisions in good faith, then it's something that would be covered by our policy. If you are charged with some type of ethics violation, that is something that the policy does have a reimbursement coverage component to. So if you prevail and are ultimately, determined or vindicated rather, right, and that there was no ethics violation, there is coverage up, in an aggregate amount. I think it's $5,000 per commissioner and then $15,000 in annual aggregate per member that the city would be entitled to if you had to obtain, an attorney to defend you for that violation. But, any of the decisions that you make up here, as long as you're making them in good faith and there's no criminality involved, then that is something that would be covered by the program.
Can you I'm going to try to drill down a little more. Can you tell us what we're not covered for? Isn't there more than just criminal activity, fiduciary issues, or is there any other issues there that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so there are limitations in terms of like non-monetary claims, inverse condemnation, Burt Harris, those type of things. So if you make decisions based off the taking of property or something like that, there are going to be coverage sublimits for that. So Burt Harris would be $300,000, inverse condemnation would be $100,000, and so would any non-monetary claim. To get into the specifics of exclusions, I mean, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head because now you really put me on the spot, right?
That's okay. You can even send that back to us because I read about other jurisdictions that are having a few issues. And what about we had an issue of $250,000 that wasn't covered this last year. It was this last year, correct? With a $250,000 because of we had to settle it and it wasn't covered, and it entailed. What was it, us not paying or refusing a contractor dispute on a bill?
Was it contractual liability?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we like most programs and most insurers, we exclude contractual liability, but then we write the coverage back in on a very limited basis. So the way that we cover contractual liability was if there is liability for the city in the absence of a contract. In other words, you can't write up a contract to indemnify someone else for whatever matters that you want, and then have an expectation that the insurance will pay for it. There's no insurer out there that will do that.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I don't know about.
It's a breach of contract,
basically. We're going to talk on what we don't want to step on those landmines again, right?
Sure.
I mean, it cost us $250,000, and it was just we didn't think that they deserved the money, and they thought they did, and we ended up having to settle the thing. But anything like that I think it would really make a big difference in the way I look at things.
Okay.
I know the whole property dispute thing that you just talked about is a big issue, and we're careful on that. But I'll open it up to the rest of the group because they're here to tell us if you're going to lose your house.
What if I took something that Mr. J. Cox said and made a public statement about it, and it was public, it was in a workshop, in a council meeting or whatever, and it could have severe consequences down the road, all because I took what he said, misinterpreted it, and announced it to the public? What kind of comeback do I have for that?
So, I mean, if the comment was made at a public meeting, and then, are you saying that it was made in private and then you reiterated?
No, I'm saying I busted him right here.
Oh.
I misconstrued or formed an opinion or said that, yeah, I saw him do this or whatever, or yeah, I heard him say this. And it's right there before God and the public. And it could have impending consequences for him. What kind of comeback do I have as a council member?
If I may, as the attorney, it depends on what you're talking about. They're covering the city. They're not covering you. So if you were doing something in your individual capacity, they have nothing to do with that. right? So if you commit a tort, which that would be a tort of defamation, that, at least that would be the allegation, right? That would be something in your individual capacity. The city would have no coverage for that. Even if it was said at a public meeting, that is you as a person, not you as a representative of the city. They provide coverage to make sure that you as a representative of the city doesn't get hit with these chunks of change coming out of the city's budget.
So, me being on the council, and representing the city, it's not the city.
Correct. In that case, I mean, I can't consider why on earth that would be, in this particular situation, why that would be a city thing as opposed to a individual person thing. Just because you're on the city council doesn't mean you have carte blanche to start getting city insurance coverage for any potential tort or anything you might commit.
Well, and all you get an understanding, and that is what I was trying to get.
Yeah, and just to kind of further elaborate on that, I think if the way we would view it is, it obviously depends on who ultimately would bring suit, right? Because in order for a claim to rise, somebody from the community would have to sue, whether they sued you personally or whether they sued the city. So if you were making defamatory remarks and they sued you directly, obviously there would be no coverage from PRM. However, if the city was named in that lawsuit, then we would defend the city to get them removed from that lawsuit on the basis that there is no liability because those comments were made, unfortunately, personally, by you.
Thank you.
In theory, this is all hypothetical.
In theory, yes.
Very interesting path, and I don't want to take up too much time. So let's take a hypothetical. A city employee takes out a frivolous complaint, legal complaint, and it's totally dismissed, but it cost the other person 10 or 20 grand. Is that covered? If both parties are part of the city, and one takes out
This is in their individual capacity?
claim against another person, like a felony claim?
Individual capacity, this is not suing the city. This is saying employee A is suing employee B. Yeah, that has nothing to, those are two individuals that happen to be city employees.
So it would have no impact on the city at all?
Correct, the city's not a named party.
Right.
Okay, can I bring up Florida statute 286.011? If a member of the board is brought up on a sunshine violation and it is found that he didn't do anything wrong, it says that the board or commission is authorized to pay their reasonable attorney charge. Is that something the insurance would cover?
So the city is obligated. Us as the insurance, we do provide limited coverage for that, correct?
Okay,
Right.
do we have that coverage right now?
Yes, you would have 5,000 per commissioner and then 15,000 in the aggregate for the year for the city.
Okay. Barbara, could you please keep everything general? This is twice you've called me out by name.
I'm sorry.
I like you. Don't
I'll
you
do
like me?
better.
Well, she raised the hypothetical because it would never happen in real life. That's why, right?
I'm sorry.
Oddly specific hypotheticals.
Maybe obviously specific.
But Mr. Mayor, I think going back to the example that you tried to make, I think we have seen examples of that, like for an employment practices claim, right? Where you have an employee that has a particular issue with another employee, not necessarily the city at large, but the city gets roped into the lawsuit because they're the ones that came up with the guidelines on how to handle employees and complaints and what have you. In that instance, yes, the PRM program would provide coverage to defend that employment practices liability claim, but.
I just think that the hypothetical is just to find out if the city loses for something that happens with two people that, playing
Yeah, I don't think there
mischievous
would
games.
be a named party in the suit, but.
I did make a few notes, and this is just based on some prior historical conversations with staff. I think some things that y'all can do or should do, but what you shouldn't do is if an incident comes up where you feel like the city is liable for something, and maybe there's some gray area or whatever, like, don't admit liability. And I'm not saying that you're not liable. I'm just saying let the insurance company be the bad guy. Let them tell the citizen or whomever that there is coverage or isn't coverage. Like, I understand that they're your constituents, and it could be your neighbor, it could be your cousin. You're like, oh, I want to help them. That's fine, but if you extend coverage or say that there's coverage in a situation when you haven't read the policy to know what's covered and you don't have the authority to interpret it, it could put the city in a really bad position because now this expectation has been set that there's coverage and there isn't coverage. And again, it's not to say that there isn't coverage for specific claims, it's just let the adjuster make that determination, not staff or someone else.
So would it be appropriate to say something along the lines of, we can escalate that to the insurance company and find out if there's coverage? Or see if
Absolutely.
there, okay.
We're going to, this is y'all or staff talking, we're going to do a full-blown incident report, we're going to file it with our insurance company, we're going to give them your contact information, your phone number, your email, we're going to push them to contact you immediately, end of story, along those lines. In a very nice, sympathetic, right? Because sometimes it's a tough situation, and I'm not saying don't be empathetic to people, but again, let those adjusters be the ones that make those determinations. And then I would say whenever y'all acquire property, right, so like your new park, automobiles, things of that nature, let us know. So the cool thing about PRM is we don't charge you midterm. So if y'all buy like 5 new vehicles, we're not going to charge you midterm for that. We're going to wait until the upcoming renewal. We need to track those right and add them to our schedule, but we're not going to charge you for them. So please let us know as you acquire property so that we can make sure it's on the schedule. We do have some safety nets built in so that if you do forget to tell us about something, there's some coverages built in for that. But please let us know and communicate with us so that we can get that stuff added to the schedule. I think that's all I have extra.
That's a great point.
So just one, the nuclear thing, what if we take a vote on something that really submarines the city, like debt, or take a vote that then the constituents believe was not in the best interest of the city, and they come back to sue because we've turned the city upside down, are we covered?
Yeah, so I probably should have prefaced all of this conversation by saying we are not the adjusters. We don't adjudicate the claims, right? But in these hypothetical situations, yes, there would be coverage.
Okay, thank
You
you.
make a decision, the city's in an uproar, however, they have to then prove, right, that they've somehow been harmed by the decision that this council made.
And I also think it's vital to point out that that would still be the city as an entity. It would not be you as individuals. You guys are protected by sovereign immunity unless there is, bad faith, malicious purpose, or wanton and willful disregard of human rights, safety, or property. Absent those 3 things, the city is the entity that gets sued, not you as individuals. So you have that protection, that sovereign immunity for decisions that are made, because that's the nature of political decisions.
Being used down south called separately and severally, where the people are getting sued on the council. What is that, one of those 3 or 4 items? That they had to have done one of those in order to be taken out from under the umbrella?
Yeah, so there's kind of the piercing the corporate veil aspect in the private sector, which is kind of, again, that's generally what it takes to not get protected from the protections for fiduciary duty in the kind of corporate sector. But yeah, under the governance things, you do have that sovereign immunity protection, which helps out a lot more. It's even more robust.
So Volusia County, with that whole upside down thing with their fleet, and money got vanished and people got, the city doesn't have the right to go back to those people that money was changed hands with and all that. With the, that was, the governor brought that up with the vehicles.
Well, I mean, if there's an actual wrongdoing, I mean, I don't want to necessarily get down the rabbit trail of things I don't have all the facts in front of me from, but if there's actual wrongdoing, you can pursue wrongdoing, but that's different than saying, hey, we held a vote to acquire 7 new trucks, turns out we didn't need them. Well, okay, then the penalty for that is you lose the next election, right? That is the idea. That is the accountability for elected officials, is that you're accountable at election cycles. People would never make controversial decisions as elected officials if they could be sued at any time.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to go over this? It's just, we had briefly spoke about the city perhaps taking a deductible. I don't know, Mr. Manager, if you want to, Mr. Mayor, do you guys?
At the mayor and council's discretion.
Okay.
I think that's a different presentation.
Sure.
The presentation that I think that we talked about was just letting everybody know what we're liable for and what we're not liable for. A lot of different stories going around, and just, I don't want to lose my farm,
Sure.
I don't know if I have to get reinsured from the reinsurance, but
I mean, generally speaking, honestly, if criminality is not involved, what city attorney just mentioned, then you're fine. You're going to have coverage provided under
Very
under
good.
the PRM coverage
If,
document.
if you think, did we not ask any questions we should have asked you
No, I
as the
think
council?
those are all good questions.
Act in
It's
good
hard to-
faith,
the-
Don't
the-
break the law. That's what I'm hearing, right? That's what-
Yeah, the difficult part about, saying, hey, what's excluded and what's covered is that there's so many different variables that typically occur within a claim. So when we speak in hypotheticals, it's a very linear equation, right? In terms of if this happens, is there coverage? Yes, the intent of the policy is to cover that. But there's so many different things that could happen that would give rise to a claim that it's hard to say, yes, that would definitively 100% be covered, or that would 100% be excluded, because it can vary. I know that's kind of a turning, no offense, non-answer, right? But that's the reality of the situation.
And sometimes the implication, of coverage may be dependent upon a jury, a judge, someone else, that where, PRM couldn't really answer that question until certain things are sorted out in the court system.
But any other questions? We're happy to answer them.
No, appreciate you sitting through the whole morning with us, and I'm sure it was exciting to watch. But
I think your definition of exciting and mine are very different, but yes.
Well, we appreciate you so much.
We appreciate the
and what you
opportunity to
do.
be here with you
Oh,
guys
just
today.
one last, how do you factor in how many settlements we do a year? How does that impact the rate? Do we have so many that you factor in and we're okay, or?
No, yeah, so I mean, the way to really look at it is from a program perspective, and this is really for any insurer or any program that caters to public entities or just anybody in general, is the loss funding requirement. How much is that program or insurance company going to retain in terms of the losses that you bring to the table? What are the reinsurance costs for insuring those catastrophic losses, right? And then what are your exposure increases, right? So ultimately, that helps to determine the rate, and then you take that rate and you extrapolate it based off the exposure basis, which typically is going to be like payroll and total insurable values. So we look at your loss experience, yes. It doesn't matter if you've had 50 settlements. It really matters the severity. I mean, the frequency certainly gets brought into the equation in terms of, is it a variable in the equation? Yes, but more important is the severity. What are those claims settling at? Because sometimes proactively, just from good business practice, right, you don't want to set a bad precedent, but sometimes it's more economical and better business to resolve claims versus litigate them, and you end up in the same spot anyways, right?
Yeah,
6 months
yeah.
down the road.
So you evaluate that once a year?
We look at it throughout the year, but I would say in June, we kind of start giving out budget expectations for our members in terms of what the upcoming renewal is going to look like, and then by mid-August, we are delivering renewals.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, that's going to conclude.
Okay, next on the agenda, didn't we have something from the legal? Didn't you have a presentation? I was told they're dynamic.
Yeah, the presentation. There was one presentation that you skipped. And then I kind of touched on the part of the presentation that we discussed. Mostly it was regarding the kind of idea of fiduciary duty. We didn't pull up the presentation if we want to. If not, I can just go through it pretty quickly.
No, I was told it was a really dynamic
Oh, yeah.
presentation.
Well,
and
I mean, the suit's a little tight for the cartwheels I had planned, but we can go for it. So I think one of the key terms is, oh, thank you. Yeah, we're skipping.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
We just skipped most of
We
it.
just, yeah, this is part 2. All right, so this is the fiduciary duties of public officers. So the term fiduciary duties, as I mentioned, there are fiduciary duties that public officers have. That is a term that is typically applied more in the private context. In the public context, it is language like the public trust or public ethics. And that is based in the Article 2, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution, which enumerates the kind of foundations for ethics for public officers. The public office is a public trust. The people shall have the right to secure and sustain that trust against abuse. And then Article 2, Section 8 goes to detail a lot more examples, and then the ethics duties are much more robustly explored in the Florida Code of Ethics, which is Part 3 of Chapter 112 of the Florida Statutes, which I'm sure you are all painfully familiar with, but we're bringing it up. And that's duties such as financial disclosure, avoiding conflict of interest, not using the powers of public office for special personal gain. Typically, you don't hear things like duty of loyalty and duty of care used for public officers. The duty of loyalty is implied. Duty of care is a lot, which is in a private context, the idea that you're going to basically take your job seriously. Because of the subjective nature of a lot of political decisions, that is a lot more loosely applied to public officers, especially elected officials. In fact, there was actually a bill a few years ago that tried to expressly add a duty of care element for public officers, and it did not pass because they had precisely these concerns that it's so subjective that it would just lead to basically a lot of litigation, basically on political disagreement. But one of the key things that's important is, as we're discussing all these aspects, I know one of the things that seems to be asked is, what is your personal exposure, right? You know, you talk about not wanting to lose the farm, right? Well, the key thing is that you guys, as elected officials, have sovereign immunity. And that states that no officer, employee, or agent of the state or any of its subdivisions, which is this one, shall be held personally liable in tort or named as a party defendant in any action for any injury or damage suffered as a result of any act, event, or omission of action in the scope of her or his employment or function, unless such employee or agent acted in bad faith, with malicious purpose, or in a manner exhibiting wanton and willful disregard of human rights, safety, or property. So, absent these three things, if someone is trying to come against you personally for a decision you made in your official capacity, that would have to be the city would have to intervene, and you would get cut out as a personal defendant. The city would become the defendant on your behalf, right? The city indemnifies you. That's that's not in the slides here, but that's in Chapter 111. It discusses the fact that in any civil case, the city will be, or the government entity that is your employer will serve as will step in your place unless there's bad faith, malicious purpose, or wanton and willful disregard. There it is. Whoop. I keep forgetting where to point the thing. So here it is again. Bad faith, malicious purpose, and wanton and willful disregard of human rights. Again, a lot of these things are basically, if there's some kind of personal wrongdoing that you engaged in during your thing, and that goes to ethics things too, right, as was discussed. If there's any ethical violation that you commit as a member of a board or anything like that is something that you personally committed, right? Even if all of you happen to have the exact same conflict of interest, those are all an individual conflict of interest, that would be an individual ethics claim against you, not against, there's no ethics claims against the board writ large, right? So that's the exception. But as the insurers discussed, that is also something in which case if you prevail and showcase that claim was frivolous, you will get indemnification, the city will cover that. But because that is not the city, that is a personal ethical violation against you individually, that's an exception to that civil kind of, bad faith is equated with actual malice, which is a very high standard to meet. It takes a lot to actually kind of achieve the bad faith standard. Giant text bubble, we don't necessarily need to get into it, but, so it is basically saying that the defendant had to have known or reasonably should have known that the conduct would naturally or probably result in injury, disregarding foreseeable injurious consequences. Right? It's a very high bar to pass. It must be reprehensible, more reprehensible or unacceptable than merely being intentional. Just because even if you intended to do something controversial, that doesn't rise to the level of bad faith. That kind of malicious behavior that needs to be would lead to your individual exposure. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, because from the fiduciary duty aspect, it's in your individual liability coverage. It's really not super severe in terms of civil suits like torts and things like that. In your professional capacity, obviously, if you go out and hit somebody on your drive over, and you're possibly if it's in a city vehicle or something, that might be some coverage. But generally speaking, anything like that would be a personal. But that's going to be something stuff that's not done in your individual capacity, that's done in your professional capacity as a member of the board, or would we be protected from individual liability. And the city would be protected, again, through that insurance.
Let me understand, define malice, what malice means.
So the malice is the malice. Let me see. Yeah. So the actual malice standard. This is the fun part of where judges use explained one legal term with a different legal term without actually providing a clear definition, which is super helpful. So actual malice actually comes from First Amendment jurisprudence, which is basically, it shows, it's to sue a public official, or for a public person to prevail in a first defamation claim, they have to have a very heightened standard of showing that there was reckless disregard, there was either the statement was either knowingly false or there was a reckless disregard for the truth or falsity of the statement. So this Parker v. State Board is basically equating it to that level, where there's an active malicious intent behind it rather than just a bad outcome to somebody as a result of some kind of intentional action. You're having to go out of your way to harm somebody with this act.
And does this apply to, say we have employees, not elected officials, does these same standards apply?
Yes, yes. Yeah, so it's no officer, employee, or agent of the state, or any of its subdivisions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
Can you explain or define special personal gain and loss?
Yes, special personal gain or loss just means it's a very broad term because it's a very broad spectrum of things. It could be monetary, it could be getting your brother a job, it could be making sure your sister doesn't go to jail, it could be it could be preventing legislation that, like let's say there's a zoning thing that would negatively impact the value of an adjacent property that's owned by your cousin, right? Well, you're starting to get a little bit broad, but let's say your brother again. If it's your brother and who has property that's going to be directly impacted, even if it's not your property that's going to be directly impacted, there is some kind of special benefit or loss that's involved with the outcome of that litigation, in which case you'd have to recuse yourself. Because you could say, hey, I don't want this to go through, and you could have a bunch of reasons, but if one of the reasons is I don't want my cousin's land to lose value, that's an example of a private, obviously the most obvious one is gain or loss of money. But there's all kinds of other special benefits or losses that could happen. But the personal is not just yourself, it's also your immediate family, so spouse. It's basically that first circle, so it's spouse, children, I believe siblings.
Okay, one last thing. Sunshine law violations.
Yes.
If somebody's brought up on the council for a sunshine law violation and they are found that they didn't violate the sunshine law, the law allows for reimbursement.
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain that, how that would work?
Well, it's the same. It's in the same context as the ethics law, because you can only the city as an entity isn't committing that violation inherently. One or more individual, I guess theoretically 2 or more individuals have to be violating the sunshine law in that case. That would be in the individual capacity, and that would be brought up in that individual capacity. But because the city's not stepping in the shoes to cover it fully, it's a way for them to basically backfill to say, hey, if you can actually demonstrate that you did not violate this, we're going to reimburse you for the time and effort that you went through with this. It's very common, very similar to what happens in the corporate space a lot, where there will be kind of, if there's an allegation of wrongdoing, even if the company won't indemnify during the actual proceedings, if they can prove that there was no wrong, that they were innocent, or have it not be proven they were guilty, they will the company will then reimburse them for their expenses. So that's just basically the government taking that idea into the government space.
So when the statute says board or commission, is that us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the insurance company quoted what, 5,000?
5,000 reimbursable.
Yeah, per incident or something like that? So-
Yeah.
Okay, and then would the board have to approve their coverage or anything additional above their coverage?
That's a good question. Their coverage would be basically automatic, because they'd have to see the terms of their insurance policy, but presumably it'd be automatic kicking in for the insurance. My understanding of the law is that it's not optional. The city can't be like, well, we don't want to reimburse you, so we're not going to. That doesn't sound, it sounds like it's pretty mandatory.
Then the council would have to seek amending the insurance policy before next year's coverage started if council selected to, say, increase or reduce coverages.
Yeah.
Well, but it basically, the law basically says that reasonable attorney fees.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever reasonable attorney fees are brought to us based on a sunshine law violation that didn't go anywhere, and it was, so it didn't go to a prosecution or any type of violation determination, the board would have to, would vote on or supply or reimburse whoever on the board had that violation, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, but then the city, again, the insurance policy exists to reimburse the city for that.
Right, but we, as a board, we basically can't say no.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but that, again, that's presuming that there is a adjudication in favor of the individual.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
But still, you're suing the city, right? If that happens, if a board member says this is what, you're suing the city, right?
In terms of the
I mean, it comes out of the city. And I worry about it having such a cooling effect. I think we're on one side, but the other side is you don't want anybody that thinks something is wrong not to act on it so that something can be judged on in fear of some kind of retribution financially. I mean, there has to be, we're stating one side, there has to be another, as opposed to, and I would say the line is if it's worthy of an investigation, then it should have been done, right? Even though it came out wrong.
Well, in a lot of
If
these
it-
cases, sorry to interrupt, go
No,
ahead.
but if it isn't, if all of a sudden, say a felony is charged or something and there was no basis for it, but I call it frivolous, that's a whole different ball of wax, right?
Well, criminal action, the city wouldn't be held directly, wouldn't be involved, associated with a criminal action regardless. So like if there's a felony charge, that would be the individual felony charge. The city as an entity is not committing a
So
felony.
the individual will be responsible for that?
Correct.
Okay, good, all right, perfect. Okay, any other questions? Any? No? You good? Okay. Well, we appreciate that. That was just as dynamic as I heard. Thank you.
I can get up and do some jumping jacks if you want some visual.
Human resource efforts. You going to give us the top line on this?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Just to give you a quick update, I know you're running out of time. Let's start off with the city manager recruitment efforts. As you know, since last city manager left, we did an RFP, select a committee. The committee voted to award the RFP to SGR. Currently, as it is, I gave you a checklist here. This checklist is from the current agreement the city council, mayor and council approved. As far as the timeline is concerned for recruitment, a 12-week timeline. So I created a checklist for you to kind of run through where we are and what we're doing in this particular forest phase. 2 weeks ago, we executed the contract that council approved, and that's completed. We had a kickoff meeting with SGR to discuss our next steps and our strategy and to develop a timeline. A timeline will be forthcoming to you all in our next phase. And so as part of the process, SGR is looking to develop a profile for the city. We had to do a questionnaire, which we provided to them. They wanted pictures. They're going to develop a brochure. They're going to be presenting that brochure to you all for you to approve that brochure and decide this is how you want to paint a picture of your city. And so that's forthcoming. Where we are, if you look at this, you check the first box here, contract execution, kickoff meeting done, organization, position, and site analysis, that's complete. Stakeholders interview. Most of you have already had discussion with SGR and have told them what your priorities are. There's one council member that have his interview tomorrow with them, so that would wrap up all 5 members meeting with them to tell them what their strategic priorities are for city manager hire. The next step will involve them taking all the information we have given them. By the way, I've worked with communication, gotten a lot of pictures and different materials for them. So they are in the process of also drafting a recruitment brochure to help develop that to present to you all. So that's in process as well. What I want to talk to you about also is the recruitment effort. So once that brochure is drafted and completed and you all approve it, say, yes, this is what we'd like to use to put out there to represent our city, they'll start a recruitment campaign. And that's going to be about 1 to 4 weeks. I think that's going to be the bulk of our 12 weeks, that process. Their intent is to at least bring about 15 candidates initially for a screening so that you all can look at. We're not going to interview 15 people because you might get resumes that are quite not relevant to the position or what you're looking for, but that's the intent, for you to have a good selection of candidates for you to look at initially, a good pool. What will happen, go ahead.
Do you have a process, like we go through these 15? What's the process of how we rate them? Because we're not going to be able to talk to each other. We're going to have to figure
You're going
it
to
out.
have a questionnaire. They're developing a questionnaire and a scoring methodology. And so what will happen next? Once the brochure goes out, we advertise and we start getting these resumes. In the contract, SGR, they're committed to being here twice. So they're going to come out. We're going to set that up before all of this happen, so you'll know what your structured process is. Interview questions are going to help work with you to develop interview questions, scoring methodology, and to help you to kind of give you pointers, how to interview, what to ask, and help you to incorporate some of the priorities. You have to develop one standard questionnaire that everyone can ask, the same type of questions. So that's all coming. And then also they'll be here, once you start interviewing, bringing candidates, they'll be here also to ensure that the interview process is well-structured and well-run up until, selection of someone for any kind of background screening, all of that they'll do on the finalists we select. The intent is to have at least 3 or 4 people for you to be able to consider strongly for interviews. I mean, we could talk about maybe different numbers, but I think that would be reasonable. It'd give you a decent qualified pool of candidates that you can really look at and select someone from that. All the interviews will be face-to-face, and all of that will be coordinated with SGR and myself and other people in the city and you all. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we are. We're just waiting to finish the final interview with the last council member tomorrow. And we'll move on to creating the brochure and bringing that to you. This process is going to go pretty quickly. It may seem like, the way it's drawn out, 12 weeks. We're already 2 weeks into it. So it's going to go pretty quickly. This is your decision. You have the opportunity to ask whatever you may need of them and to work with them to develop questions that you want to ask candidates, your priorities, and they'll incorporate that into the interview process.
Is there a pilot process for any of our current team members to apply and go through the process?
Once it's advertised, anyone internally that's interested will have the opportunity to apply to it.
And another thing, and here it says they're recorded interviews, recorded. Is it legal for us to hear? Is it legal? Is it legal? Is it legal for us to hear the recordings? Because I've been in a situation
as long as
where
it's disclosed.
8 people ask me the same questions over and over, and we can't talk to each other. And it would be great if Amy Jo's interviewing and she's asking a lot of the questions I can get, and then I have my time.
Okay, so so if you're asking about that, then my understanding was that you were asking if there was some kind of an interview with like staff. if it's interviews with you, that would still be sunshine law, because you're, in a sense, using that interview as an intermediary to spend, even though you're basically having an interaction with this person outside of the public space, if that makes sense.
So it's legal.
It is not legal.
It's not legal.
I'm saying it would be legal for you guys to be watching the like staff, but I'm saying it gets a lot dodgier if you're watching interviews with each other, because it's kind of communications. It's kind of indirect communications to each other regarding something that's going to come before a vote. So because even that kind of cutout. Use of a cutout is not permissible. So
You guys would be able to see my face. No.
Could we use a static team presentation where the only person that has the ability to talk is the person who's doing the interview? Then we'd just be listening, and that wouldn't violate anything. You can think about it and get back to it.
Well, and that's also kind of a different question than what the question was asked, which is the recording question. Those are two different things. So I mean, I need more details about the specifics, but my kind of gut level instinct is if the city staff is going to have an interview and you guys want to record that and then individually watch it, totally fine. There's no problem with that. If you're talking about each individual council member and being watched by the other council members, that starts to get a little dodgier.
It's too bad. It's too bad we get a lot
We
further.
interview them as a panel.
Could we get a transcript?
I mean, I guess that would have to be a public
It'd have to be a
meeting, but-
publicly posted meeting.
I'm saying you can, but it would be a public meeting.
Okay.
All right, questions?
Nope, he answered mine.
Questions? Barbara, questions?
All right, moving on to city attorney. We initially started working on a request for proposal for city attorney. After having discussion internally and externally, we did pull an RFP. They're recommending doing an RFP, but to increase the limits of liability, and there are some other areas of concern. So we're in a final review of getting that RFP back to procurement for them to advertise it. As soon as that's back to them, which will be tomorrow, I'm close to my final review. I just want to make sure, we're not referencing a county or a city or some other municipalities, because most of these things you use what's out there. So final review will happen today, and it'll go back to procurement. They are going to advertise. They're going to start the process to advertise. And again, we'll get a timeline similar to how we had a timeline for the city manager RFP process. So I'll be sharing that timeline with you all as soon as she gets the document and she reviews it and she advertises it. We'll get a structured timeline and we'll share that with you. There'll also be a committee process, so we'll be selecting, a committee there for that too. So, and then it'll obviously come to you for your approval and so on. So,
Mr. Mayor, did we rule out hiring a person to be part of the staff? No. So why are we going out for an RFP only?
We said we'd do a double-prong approach.
Right,
Remember, we
so-
would have, find out what the estimated cost to be inside, but we said we wanted him to go out, so we had two, we're not delaying one for the other.
So can you speak about the other side now? About hiring somebody to be part of the staff?
that is not a position that's in the budget, as far as my knowledge is concerned. That would have to be something that would have to be approved and put in the budget for.
We could come back, if you give me about a week to work with DL, I could get back to you in our briefings with some estimated costs and how we could go about a mid-year amendment, just to give you that option.
Right, and we would be laterally moving, which is a problem with me, but we'd be laterally moving what's already budgeted for legal into that slot. So to say it's not totally budgeted might be different.
Right, we would pull from that.
Yeah.
But we did have a consensus, and then we directed the city manager to go down both tracks, simultaneously. So we don't need to reauthorize anything. You need to be going down both tracks.
Would you like to make it a decision before the RFP goes out in terms of what direction you're going? It would be confusing to go through an RFP while still evaluating an in-house in tandem.
Request for proposals, request for a proposal. So I would still be looking at two, because we don't want to drag this out until, the end of the summer. we can act pretty quick and pull it back if we need to on the other side, but we need to, we just need to say what we're going to do and do what we say. You know, we just got to get it, that's been out in the public realm, and we've got to go both.
Right, but there's not really a big fee to running our own RFP, right? There is a fee, but.
Not necessarily. You'd be doing an RFP while posting a position, though. Could be a little confusing. Again, it's at the council's discretion, whatever you would like to do, we'll move forward with it.
Well, right now, we don't have any options because all he's talking about is RFP. So you need to get back to us, I think, before, because, well, just do it at the same time, like we asked you the first time.
Yeah,
You know?
just move forward. Yep.
All right, and then the finance director, so let's talk about that. Had some candidates, we did some interviews. There was one candidate that, well, let me just backtrack a little bit just so I provide a little bit of context. What we've been trying to do with all these recruitments that we've been doing is to try to be as transparent as possible. So using different stakeholders, not just city employee panels, we go out and we talk to other people from other municipalities, get them to meet these folks, talk to them, engage, other members of the public, officials to try to make sure that we get a right fit for these positions. Finance director, CFO is one of those positions you've talked a whole lot about that since you've sat here today. And so we have engaged an individual. I don't want to go into names or where they work and things like that, but we've engaged a gentleman that's a finance director. Now, he has met with Tim, myself, others, and we've recommended him for the position based on his experience. He's at over 15 years. He is currently working on a CPA. Doesn't have a CPA, I just want to clarify that. Bachelor's degree, master's degree, very qualified. Now, whenever we make any offers to anyone in particular, it's a conditional offer of employment. What are the conditions? Background checks, reference checks, drug screening. So we've started off with drug screening. Those are good. The background's not finished. Now, there were some questions that were raised regarding audits and, current employer the individual work at. We are as a part of that condition, we understand that's a very serious concern. So we are currently addressing that by talking to the municipality. I know Tim has had some conversations, the mayor, just to get to the root of that issue, because there's all sorts of information out there. So we don't want to get into a situation where we're late on our audits or, some of those concerns. You all have expressed that. So I'm not advocating for anybody. My advocate is the city. Make sure if we're told that because of X, Y, and Z reason that's not the right fit for the city or doesn't meet our requirements, then that's what it is. We're going to go back to the drawing board. And I've engaged another individual today for the role as well. So it's an interview we'll conduct, and I have our panel and others involved in that as well. So if that doesn't work out, the first one doesn't work out, we'll have some options, and it's only for options, but we're going to continue along the path we are until we have, clarity, and but a decision will have to be made, pretty soon. It's not fair to candidates, nor is it fair for the city to, string out that process. So we are working internally to button it up. It may sound like I'm saying it's messy, but it is messy, right? And that's what we have to do. We just have
Well, it's due diligence, so we want to
vet
make
it
sure
out.
if we make it a selection, it's going to be the best fit for the organization, and we're taking it into all your values, and concerns and making sure we're making improvements on it. So we don't take it lightly. Thanks, Steve.
That's, I think that's the overriding thing. We're not taking it lightly or taking sides or, it's not. This process is so much more deliberate than we've ever had in the past for every single position. In the past, people, would get recommended for a position, they're hired. We're doing so much more due diligence than we've ever have done for these high-level positions. And I think it says something about you and your expectations of us and expectations of our city. And so we're trying to improve how we do things and to do things better.
So, Dio, when will you solidify? I think I heard you say you'd be talking to the municipalities and other people or whatever. When will you solidify? This has been going on and on and on and on. Any idea of a date? Fifth Sunday of next month, or when is this going to happen?
No, ma'am.
In full disclosure, Madam Vice Mayor, I have had some conversations this morning I have not shared with Dio. I would like to speak with him prior to. We want to expedite it. We don't want to drag our feet with it, but I want to make sure that he's getting some information before we make a final decision on that.
Okay.
And too, while you're relating that, I think it's important to define what late audits are. Some people think it's like our audit, that was way beyond some, and I think the schedule that I've gotten is a little different where they met the extension, but I think when we go out and say they were late on audits, people look at it the way from our standpoint rather than what the actual issue was.
More questions on that? All right, so really quickly, the last thing, communications director. We've had several interviews there. There are some discussions. We just met with a gentleman that works for WISH. I think he's familiar with some of you all. He's done some interviews, but he's a consideration. And then there are some discussions about perhaps the interim, also maybe elevating, promoting it. But those are discussions we're having. So we'll have some more conversations. He's yet to meet Tim and others who are interested in meeting him. And so we haven't made any decisions or finalized or made any determination. But that's, that's direction where we are with that right now. Any question in that? Okay. And just lastly, 2 minutes, I just want you to know that this last month and a half or two, we filled 2 finance positions, a senior finance, an accountant position. We had a CRA coordinator position. We had a CRA manager position. We had a procurement manager position. We had an economic development and CRA position, a conservation specialist position, capital projects manager, which we just made that offer to some, and that is just my department of 2 people for the entire city. And we have fire, have an opening, police may have 1 or 2 dispatch. So there's a lot. You add all these RFPs, you have all these executive. We really are trying to ensure that we expeditiously do these things.
You're doing a great job. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Dio? No? Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is new management tracking system. Do you want to do that today?
Totally up to you, Mr. Mayor, and the council's discretion. I know we're already past the 2 o'clock time. Some of you might be getting hungry, so if you want to put this off into the next meeting, we totally understand. If you'd like to stick around, we do have bagels. Again, up to you. We're ready to give the presentation, but we're also happy to table it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we all have to be ready for the next function down the street, and some of us have some comments.
This coming up, you have the 5:30 South Lake Regional Park opening. So it's a busy day.
I would like to, because I think that's going to require more discussion than we have time for today. I mean,
I
that's
agree.
a-
I would
that's a
hate to
huge
rush
thing.
it. There's a lot of good detail. It's a significant undertaking for the city. It's really going to launch our multiple years of efforts here.
It's
for the city.
evolutionary.
It is transformative.
Yeah.
Can I make a request on their behalf that the next time we put them first on the agenda so they don't have to sit through another 4-hour meeting before we get to them? I'm okay with postponing, but yeah.
Well,
Thank
somebody
you,
would
Jim
have
and Mark,
to
for
sit.
patiently waiting and
That's true. I just don't want them
being
to sit
flexible.
twice. Once is fine. It happens.
Okay, before we close, I was asked to open it up for discussion from the council. Do you have?
Yes, I just want to talk a little bit about showing up. Life be life and for all of us, okay? That's just the way it is. Life is life and for all of us. But I just want to remind the council members that we have a responsibility to be present, visible, and engaging in the various communities that we serve. When we miss community events or choose not to participate, it creates a gap between us and our residents who rely on us. And so I would like to see that during report time, it would be nice to have additional updates about what we all are doing in the community for our constituents that reflect the actual work that we are doing. And not just what's happening in the city or our personal priorities, because I think that our residents deserve transparent and a clear understanding of what we are doing in our districts to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything, Mr. Jaycox? Have anything? And I only have one thing that I'm very excited about. 4th of July, I guess they've approved us having those boats out on the, they're going to rent, Nelson is going to rent these round boats. You can go around out for, in Lake David on the 4th of July as an experiment to see if that's something that
That's so
will
cool.
keep going on. It's
Okay, I'm
electric
excited.
motors, no gas, no nothing. But please bring your kids. And I think it's going to be unbelievably cool to watch all the stuff going out on the lake. So with that, well, we'll talk about it at another meeting. You know,
Okay,
we
alligators
have
out there on the lake?
no, we have graduations going on, and it's really cool to see have people there. You know, I can't make the one on Friday. Can you make the one on Friday for elementary school?
I'll be there.
Okay, because I can't make that one, but maybe we ought next year for the graduations kind of divide it up, you
That's a
know?
good
So
idea. Yeah.
we have representatives, and they're so happy when we're there, and the parents are so happy as well. But I appreciate all of you. I appreciate everybody staying here, my ones that never leave over here, and and the only ones not getting paid to be here. So thank you so much. A meeting adjourned.